is Sarah Paulus, and I have the privilege of sitting on the board of Vote Assyrian. Hopefully this forum will be one of many hosted by the Assyrian community, and as we build relationships with the politicians who represent our interests. Vote Assyrian is dedicated to building community and improving civic engagement through education, outreach, and volunteer opportunities. As a public high school teacher, I get to see on a daily basis how political decisions affect local families. We'd like to thank you all for being here, especially in the unfavorable weather conditions. So thank you for coming out, even though it was snowy and hard to dig your cars out. We'd like to begin our evening by welcoming one of our candidates. Jan Schakowsky has been a lifelong consumer advocate and champion for what she sees as the disappearing middle class. From her days as a young housewife who led campaign to put expiration dates on food products to the 2008 passage of legislation, she helped write making children's products and toys safe. Jan has worked to make life better for working and middle-class Americans. Jan was elected to represent Illinois' 9th Congressional District in 1998 after serving 8 years in the Illinois General Assembly. She is in her 8th term, serving in the House Democratic leadership as Chief Deputy Whip and serves as one of 16 members on the Democratic Message team. She's member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, where she is ranking Democrat on the committee, Commerce, Manufacturing and Trade Subcommittee, and she also sits on subcommittees on health and overnight and investigations. Jan also serves as the National Chairman for Candidate Services for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. For decades, Jan identified her top priority as winning affordable, quality health care for all Americans. In 2009 and 2010, she played a leadership role in writing and passing the historic Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act that finally established health care as a right and not a privilege in the United States. Working and middle-class people see Jan out there fighting for their jobs and paychecks at a time when income inequality has reached record levels. In 2010, the then Speaker Pelosi appointed Jan to President Obama's 18-member National Committee on Fiscal Responsibility and Reform, where she bucked the majority and offered her own proposal to balance the budget without cutting Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, or further burdening struggling families. Jan is proudly pro-choice, favors marriage equality, and comprehensive immigration reform, and Jan was a founding member of the Out of Iraq Caucus in the U.S. House. She co-chairs the Democratic Seniors Task Force, which focuses on addressing the needs of older Americans. As a Jewish congresswoman, Jan has a deep personal connection to the State of Israel and has consistently voted for measures to assure Israel's security and to promote efforts towards a two-state solution, with Israel and Palestine living side by side. Jan lives in Evanston, Illinois with her husband Robert Creamer and their 2 dogs, Ellie and Frankie. She has 3 marvelous children, Ian, Mary, and stepdaughter Lauren, and 6 exceptional grandchildren, Isabel, Eve, Lucy, William, Aiden, and Alice. She graduated from the University of Illinois in 1965 with a bachelor's in elementary education. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming our Congresswoman, Jan Schakowsky.
We just saw each other at Niles North, where I went to speak to a classroom. Well, what a wonderful turnout on a really difficult day to get out in this beautiful setting, and I'm so proud to represent a large part of the Assyrian community in the Chicagoland area. As you know, that where's our Mayor George Van Dusen? I know was here. That there was actually a polling place for elections in Iraq here in I think in Skokie, right? But I want to talk to you first a little bit about this whole idea of immigration and immigrants. I'm a first-generation American. My parents, neither one was born in this country. And my grandfather, who came here, and grandmother, not knowing English, not much of an education, hardly any money in their pocket. My grandfather had a horse and wagon that he would pull down the alleys of Humboldt Park in Chicago and carry big, heavy bags of potatoes up and down the staircases on the third floors. All four of his children went to college, and his granddaughter now is in the United States Congress. And that is, except for maybe the being in Congress part, is a typical immigrant story. People come here, work hard, and rejuvenate and inspire every generation of Americans. Wherever I go, including at Niles North, I say, how many of you in the audience, the kids, were born out of this country? And a few hands go up. And how many of your, I said, leave your hands up, how many of your parents were born elsewhere? And more hands go up. And how many of your grandparents were born somewhere else? And almost every hand goes up. And that happens every place I go, because this is what America looks like, right here in this room. So I was privileged to be one of the first members of Congress to join the Congressional Assyrian Caucus and to be a co-sponsor of the American Genocide Resolution. Because I stand with you. And all of the efforts now to limit immigration from countries like Iraq, and where other places that Assyrians live, is just incredible to me. It is un-American to me. Obviously, sending any Assyrians back to Iraq would literally be a death sentence. And on behalf of the United States Congress, I think I feel free to say this. The way that the Assyrians have been treated in Iraq, where I have supported the idea of having a place on the Nineveh Plains that is set aside for the Assyrian people to live in the homeland where you have been a long time. So I want to thank you for your participation in politics, for your understanding of how important it is for your community to stand up and fight for your rights, both here and in Iraq. I have worked to secure report language in the funding of legislation to direct aid to indigenous groups in the Nineveh Plain. And my report language also calls for the Iraqi government and the Kurdistan regional government to work to reconcile past transgressions against minorities, religious minorities, and ensure ethnic minorities are integrated into civic and security infrastructures. And I'm not going to quit. And you should not quit either. We need to keep fighting and fighting to make sure that people are protected where they live. I work to secure language regarding repatriation efforts in the Kaaba region, including removal of IED landmines and other unexploded ordinances. I could list the things that I have supported you on. I was told by Steve Oshana, the nephew, is he, of Raymond Oshana, one of my dear, dear friends, that I am the only member in the Congress, I'm bragging right now, that has an A+ rating for Assyrians. any better than that, and I'm the only one. So all of the issues that you face, both here, making sure that you get that there's a quality education, making sure that religious minorities all over the world are protected, that Christians are protected. These are the things that I'm working on every single day in the Congress. Unfortunately, I think we right now have a president that wants to reduce by about 50% immigration, altogether, immigration into this country, that wants to prevent what we call family reunification, being able to bring siblings and parents and even grandparents to this country. He calls it chained migration. We call it family reunification. That's how my family came here. We want to work in our local office. I want to call your attention. My district director, Leslie Collins, is here. Some of you may know her. If you have issues with immigration or with any Social Security or Veterans Affairs, whatever, make sure that you call our local office. We have an office in Chicago, we have an office full-time also in Glenview, and we are more than happy. Many of you we have worked with. One of my staff, Tayana Rodriguez, used to come on a regular basis to meet directly, come to you and talk about the problems that we can try and help solve. So I hope that you will think of me as your partner. I will be there for you in the United States Congress, in the district, fighting as hard as I can for the issues that affect you and your family. I thank you very much for the support that I have received from the community, and I hope to continue to earn that support as we go forward. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman Schakowsky, for speaking on all of those issues that directly affect the Assyrian community. We genuinely appreciate you. Moving on, we would like to take a minute to recognize all of you for being in the room. So we genuinely appreciate this community support. Thank you for checking in with our tables and registering to vote if you weren't already registered. We absolutely appreciate the support. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to event staff. We have everyone here to answer any of your questions. Moving on, we are going to move forward and hear from two of our gubernatorial candidates. So please join me in welcoming Daniel Biss for the gubernatorial candidate race.
Well, good evening. I think we can maybe do that louder. Good evening.
Good evening.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for holding this forum. Thank you for participating in this extraordinarily important election, in this extraordinarily important time. It's a very perilous time in American politics. Thank you for engaging this community so systematically and consistently to build power. I want to thank my great friend Renato for the many years, not just of political engagement, but of education, of teaching me about the community, of introducing me to the richness and vibrancy of this community, and for the richness and vibrancy that that community brings to the village of Skokie, to the 9th Senate District that I have the extraordinary honor of representing, and yes, of course, to the state of Illinois. I'm Daniel Biss. I'm state senator here in the 9th District. I live not far in Evanston with my wife Karen, our 2 children, Elliot and Theodore. They're in 2nd and 4th grade in our neighborhood public school. It's been an honor to represent the 9th District, and I'm running for governor now because it is time. It is time for us to get it right in the state of Illinois. It is time for us to build state government here in Illinois that is on the side of ordinary people and ordinary families just trying to get by. It is time for us to understand that state government in Illinois has for very long been on the side of the very wealthy, been on the side of the politically connected, and has left behind families just trying to figure out how to make ends meet. To get this right requires a new kind of politics. To get this right requires a new form of activism. To get this right is to understand where political power has typically lain in the state of Illinois and to take it back for the rest of us by building new kinds of political movements. To do this, we have to tap into a new kind of political energy, and that new political energy is there and waiting to be mobilized because, yes, of the tragic devastation that Bruce Rauner and his failure and his 2-year, 6-day budget impasse has wrought upon the state of Illinois, mobilizing people, causing pain, and causing an extraordinary reaction. And also that moment of energy is there to be tapped into because of what we are seeing come out of the White House. And when I stand here in front of this beautiful, powerful immigrant community, a beautiful, powerful community, yes, with many refugees. A beautiful, powerful community that has made life here in Illinois so much better for all of us. A community, therefore, to whom we owe gratitude, to whom we must be saying thank you. And I think about this president and these policies that are about not just restricting immigration. I wish I could stop there and say it's only about restricting immigration, but it's about restricting immigration and attacking refugees. It's about horrible, horrible attacks on people of color. It's about horrible, horrible attacks on people from the Middle East in particular. We have a president, and therefore we have a federal government that's not so sure whether the people in this room are truly American. And in fact, the people in this room are the best of America. The people in this room are what makes America great, and yes, what has always made America great, and why America is still great. And so I'm running for governor to build a movement full of people like the people in this room to transform our state and build a government that works for the rest of us. And I wish I could tell you that that state government will be able to solve the immigration problems and build just foreign policies on behalf of the many people in this room and the many relatives people in this room may still have in Iraq and elsewhere in the Middle East. I cannot do that, but I can mobilize the state government in important ways to stand with immigrants, to stand with refugees, to pass strong legislation preventing not just state police, but municipal police in participating in immigration raids with ICE and other federal entities. To make sure that the full weight of the state government is there to support all communities, all immigrant communities, regardless of immigration status, and all language communities, so that state services are available to everyone regardless of language, so that the state election process is available to everyone regardless of language. We have in our state budget a series of moral decisions to make about who are we working for, and who are we shutting out? And for far too long, most decisions in state government have been made so as to shut out those without enough political power, to shut out those who weren't born close to the halls of power, to shut out those who weren't giving the money to political campaigns. I'm Daniel Biss, and I'm running for governor to build a movement so that we have a state of Illinois, yes, that works for the Assyrian community, yes, that works for immigrant communities, yes, that stands up for refugees, yes, that builds a fair budget, and yes, most of all, that we have, after all these many decades, a state of Illinois that works for the rest of us who have been left out, but who are exactly where our state's greatest potential lies. It would be an honor to have your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel Biss. He spoke to many issues that affect the Assyrian community currently. So Governor Rauner has just vetoed a proposed extension for the community care program that so many of us rely on. So taking care of your mom or your dad or your elder, we have benefits from those programs, and Governor Rauner just vetoed that proposed extension. So it's really important that we pay attention to this gubernatorial race, and we appreciate all of Daniel Biss's comments moving forward. So thank you, appreciate you. Also here to speak for the gubernatorial race is Max Kennedy on behalf of gubernatorial candidate Chris Kennedy. Please join me in welcoming Max Kennedy.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. This is a great gathering. I was speaking earlier with the organizers, and first let me ask you this. How many of you here, and please raise your hand, have a family member, a brother, a sister, a mother, a grandmother who arrived here, or yourself, after 1963? Yeah, that's virtually every single person in this room. And I want to just let you know that in the 1920s, the United States passed acts which forbade Assyrian people, people from the Middle East, people from Africa, from immigrating to the United States. And my uncle, President John F. Kennedy, said that is wrong. And my uncle, Senator Edward Kennedy, created the legislation that allowed every single one of you to be here today. So let's just give Teddy a little hand. So when my great-great-grandfather came over from Ireland, the Irish were treated very badly. They were barred from getting jobs. They were treated poorly by the police, but they organized. And they organized, very tight at first. They got everybody in one house to vote for the same guy, and then they got everybody on the same block. And eventually they elected the first alderman, who was an Irish Catholic. Then they elected my great-grandfather mayor of Boston. And you guys have to do that. You cannot rely on the promises of politicians to take care of you. The only court case that my father, who was Attorney General of the United States, the only court case he argued was one person, one vote. Because he said, as long as you have that, every single group can hold political power and protect themselves in this country. That's what... I have my wife, Vicky, is here, and Vicky teaches literature, so sometimes at night she'll read me a poem before we go to bed, and this is one, I hope, but although it doesn't look like it, one of my pockets. I don't know if I hadn't heard of this poet. She's an American, but she was born to Palestinian and Christian parents. Her name is Naomi Shihab. And she wrote this poem: before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in a weakened broth. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. I know that every single one of you has an absolutely heartbreaking story that got you here today. And I want to make sure that never happens again in the United States. My uncle, Senator Kennedy, created all of the rules that allowed immigrants to come to the United States during the 1970s. He invented the family, what they called it, chain migration. And after the Soviet Union fell, a bunch of Russians from the KGB came over here and they said, "Could we talk to you, Senator Kennedy?" And he said, "Yeah, and they said, "We've always been trying to figure out why you wanted the whole family to come." And that's how screwed up those countries are, that they don't understand the value of family. Faith and family will keep you together, and it'll keep you safe in this country. So vote for the person you most trust every time. My brother Chris Kennedy is running, and he's awesome. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for speaking on behalf of Chris Kennedy, a gubernatorial candidate. Moving forward, just before the politicians come off the stage, we will open it up to questions. If the audience has any questions, feel free to ask. I will call on you, we'll do one of those types of setups. But as I walked off, there was a question for candidate Daniel Biss, so I will ask you that question as you come up, or if you'd like to come up first, and then we can ask that question. Hi, how are you? Welcome back, sorry for bringing you up. If elected, what will you do to protect and expand the community care program that so many Assyrians depend on? So having parents, grandparents who are heavily reliant on care. Governor Rauner just vetoed a proposal for extension for that program. As governor, what would you do to help?
So raise your hand if you're familiar with the community care program. So a lot of hands and also a fair number of non-hands. So I'm going to quickly tell the non-hands what the community care program is, because guys, this is important. The community care program is really one of the jewels of Illinois government. It's a program where the state supports people to do home visits for seniors. To support seniors, for example, in helping them bathe, helping them clean their homes, helping them care for themselves in the situation which is so common in so many of our families, where someone is healthy enough to still live at home, but needs a little bit of support to do it. The alternative is a nursing home. The alternative is farther away from the neighborhood, from family. The alternative is, in most cases, less humane. Oh, and the alternative also, by the way, is way more expensive. And so the community care program is a way to save money and keep people in their homes, living in dignity in their communities. And Bruce Rauner just wants to take it apart. Bruce Rauner has been trying to take it apart throughout his time as governor, and I have been leading the fight to stop that, passing bill after bill of my own to stop Governor Rauner from shredding the community care program and throwing seniors out of having the care they need and into the nursing home. He keeps vetoing those bills. He keeps vetoing those bills. When I'm governor, I'm going to sign those bills. But we shouldn't stop there. It's nice of you to clap, but we shouldn't stop there, because the community care program, as great as it is, still is not universal, still leaves some people in need of care without care. It is time for universal access to long-term care, for universal access to the supports needed to keep seniors in their homes, needed to keep seniors living a healthy, dignified life in the community, near their family, and saving the state money along the way. Our ticket has proposed a universal family care plan precisely to do this, and that's what we're going to fight for when I'm governor. Because it's not enough to just say no to bad ideas. It's not enough to put a stop to the disasters. It's time for us to build the society that we need, and that requires universal family care, which means expanding the community care program so that nobody finds themselves needing to go to a nursing home because they don't have the money to afford more humane care.
Thank you for that answer. We did just get one more question. I'm so sorry for bringing you back up and being a great sport about this. There's one more question for you. We as Assyrians would like to attain minority status in the state of Illinois to be able to apply for scholarships and different programs in higher ed. Would you be willing to support that, and how would you be able to support that? Sorry.
This is a wonderful question. There are ways in which we have done a decent job of lifting people up from certain communities that have been pushed down and marginalized for so much of our nation's history. And part of that is about what we count, and part of that is about what we prioritize. So let me give you an example. I fought to create in the state legislature something called an Asian American Employment Plan. Because after years and years and years of shutting out African Americans and shutting out Latinos, the state created an African American employment plan and a Latino employment plan to make sure that we were doing our best to bring African Americans and Latinos into state government, which is important both for job opportunities and also to make sure that the state government is made up of a workforce that looks like the people it's trying to serve. But those were the only two populations, and yet, of course, there are many other minority populations. So we fought to create an Asian American employment plan, which has increased employment in the state of Asian Americans and has made the state government better positioned to provide services. That was a step, but we shouldn't stop there. If we set in place these policies that make sure that we're keeping records of various minority communities, such as, of course, the Assyrian community, tracking employment in state government and, yes, headcount at universities, making sure that financial aid is made available on an equal basis as well. Once you start tracking these things, once you start asking these questions, once you start publishing numbers, action starts to change. And I think our policies in the state of Illinois ought to represent the basic fact that we know, which is the Assyrian community is a vibrant and essential part of the fabric of Illinois life. The Assyrian community adds a tremendous amount to our cultural life, to our economic life, to the diversity of Illinois. And the state government has a moral responsibility, as well as a practical responsibility, to ensure that the Assyrian community is being adequately served and adequately represented and gets its fair share of various forms of state support. That will only happen when we start to count, when we start to report honestly, when we set aggressive goals, and we make sure that the community, most of all, has a seat at the table. And let me end there, because this is important. The governor appoints a lot of people. People at the top echelons of state government, in the governor's office, and across the state agencies. A large cabinet of influential people whose judgments matter when it comes to setting state policy and state hiring. The governor also appoints an awful lot of people to boards and commissions that have a lot to say about how our universities and community colleges are run, how our state resources are allocated, how we procure services and goods. I have committed that my administration will look like the state of Illinois, with every community that is a part of that fabric of Illinois life represented at a seat at these tables, and that includes, of course, the Assyrian community, for the very simple reason that every community's voice needs to be heard when decisions are made and resources are allocated. It is time for the state to acknowledge and appreciate the cultural and economic contributions of the Assyrian community by making sure that that community has a seat at the table that it has always deserved.
We'd like to invite Max Kennedy up to actually answer both of those two questions as well. So I can ask the first one. If elected, what will you do to protect and expand the community care program that so many Assyrians depend on?
Okay, thank you very much. So the fact is, on both of those issues, we're going in and we're taking something away from someone and giving it to someone else. And the only way to do that and get it done is to use power. You can say we're going to do this and we're going to have a moral opportunity and we're going to go pull this thing through here. But the only way that is going to happen is if you elect a governor who knows how to get things passed. And let me just tell you one story. So when I was young, one guy came into Senator Kennedy's office. He wasn't even a constituent, and he said he wanted to have his Indian tribe back. He had 6 members, and they lived on a little spot of land in Connecticut. And, you know, Teddy said, well, that sounds tough, and you're not a constituent, I won't get anything out of it, but, you know, I really believe in the rights of small minorities, so I'll take it on. And they tried farming on the land. They tried getting a little community center built. Some more Indians moved onto the property. They couldn't afford the Pepsi machine, or the Coke machine, so the Coca-Cola company came and took that away. And then he came and he said, well, what if we put in a slot machine? And Daddy said, well, I'll ask. So they got their slot machine in there, and that business is now worth billions and billions of dollars every year. Those guys are a tiny minority of Native Americans who have a huge voice in the state. And it's not about signing this and moving that. It's doing this is raw power. Vote for my brother, Chris.
Thank you for that response. We do have one more question, Max, that I'm gonna...
Oh,
so
it's both.
Yeah,
it's both. The answer to both.
Oh, it's the answer to both.
Sorry, I meant to say, it's the answer to both. It's the answer to both questions. Both questions are things, they're not policy questions. They're questions of taking away something from someone who's got it and giving it to someone else. You don't change education in this country without taking something away. You don't change health care in this country without taking something away. In my family, when my grandmother turned 96, she stayed in the home, and we could pay for her care. And we took care of her, and we were with her for another 6 years until she passed away. That should not be a benefit of being wealthy. But right now, the only people in this country who can do that are the wealthiest. And if you want to be able to do it too, you got to take it away from them. That's it.
Thank you to our gubernatorial candidates for speaking on those issues. Moving forward, we are going to move to the Attorney General candidates, and we would first like to welcome up Mr. Aaron Goldstein. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Aaron Goldstein.
Good evening. How are we doing? I see Mr. Kennedy, you started with a poem, so I want to start with a little poem as well. My favorite athlete of all time, Muhammad Ali, said the shortest poem ever. Me, we. Your fight is my fight. We have to understand that. When I was a kid, my parents made me watch this documentary called Shoah. It was, I'm dating myself, so I was watching it on VHS, but it was about 6 or 8 tapes of the Holocaust. And it was gruesome. It was terrible. And I hated it as a kid. And my parents always told me, you must never forget. You all know that. We must never forget the injustice that our people have seen every single day. So when I went to law school, I went to fight injustice because I understand some certain things. That as a lawyer, it's not about making money. It's not about making fame or getting power. It's about achieving justice. And that's what I've done as a lawyer. So when I was in law school, I worked for the Legal Assistance Foundation. I worked for the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. Every single day standing up for people who didn't have representation. People who were discriminated against because of their economic status. I represented kids who were kicked out of school because they didn't have a place to stay. They didn't have a home. And that's what I saw every single day as a lawyer. And that's what I wanted to fight for as a lawyer. So when I graduated from law school, I applied for one job. And that was to be a Cook County public defender. Because I understood some very important things. Number one, this criminal justice system is not just. Number two, I believe in the human dignity of us all, that we are entitled and we have the right to an attorney. And not just an attorney that's just going to stand next to you, an attorney that's going to be a zealous advocate for you. And that's what I did as an attorney, and I've been a public defender for over 10 years. And that's what I want to do as Attorney General. It's about justice for all of us. And with all due respect to my gubernatorial candidates, I'll submit to you that this race is the most important race you're going to see on this ballot. Because an Attorney General has the ability to go into court the next day and fight for us. So what will I do as Attorney General? It's a bold, progressive agenda. Number one, stand up to the big powers, the big banks, the big corporations, and Donald Trump, who is nothing other than a tyrant. We must stop him at every single place we can. And what have we learned? What's the one benefit that's come out of this tyrant that we have in the White House? Attorneys General have power to defend all of us. What he's doing to our immigrant community, what he's doing to all of us, every single day violating the Constitution. We need an Attorney General that will stand up for all of us every single day. Number two, thank you. Number two is fight for real criminal justice reform. What does that mean? We must end this racist drug war. We must end mass incarceration. We must stop cash bail. As we speak today, there are people sitting in jail who can't post $100. Those are our friends, our family. Those are people with kids that have now lost their job, that are going to lose their children, all because they can't post $100. That is ruining our communities. We must stop that. I will do that as Attorney General. The fourth part of criminal justice reform is we must have real police accountability, which includes the community being involved in having enforcement power over any consent decree. We must trust the community when it comes to police accountability. And finally, we must fight corruption. For too long, this state has had corruption all throughout, from the bottom of the ballot all the way to the top of the ballot. And the reality is, the Attorney General's office has not done enough. We need an Attorney General with the courage to fight corruption every single day. So, my name's Aaron Goldstein. I'm running for Attorney General. I want to leave you with this. I represent individuals who cannot afford an attorney. And every single day I get an email that says no place to stay. Basically, people are giving their conditions of release, but they have to be on house arrest. They're given a bracelet around their ankle. And the only condition is they have to actually go home and live there, stay there. They're in essence a prisoner in their own home. But my clients don't even have a home to go to. They can't even find a friend or a family member to just stay there for a couple months. That's who I represent every single day. I understand what it takes to represent all of us. Not the big corporations, not the big politicians, not the big powers, actually all of us. And that's what I will do as Attorney General. My name's Aaron Goldstein, AG for AG.org. I hope I can get your support. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking to us, Mr. Goldstein. Please join me in welcoming up another candidate for the Attorney General race, Miss Nancy Rotering.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Assyrian National Council of Illinois. I so appreciate everybody coming out this afternoon. This is really an important race, and it was good to see my colleague, George Van Dusen, and of course the wonderful Jan Schakowsky, who has endorsed me in this race. I'm so proud to have Jan's support. So I'm Nancy Rotering. I'm currently the mayor of Highland Park. I'm in my 7th year as mayor, and I've done what mayors should do. I've balanced the budget, I've maintained my AAA bond rating, I've also been sued by the NRA and taken to the United States Supreme Court for banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines. I've stood up to utilities because for far too long the power would go out regularly in our part of Illinois, and after joining a lawsuit with our Attorney General Lisa Madigan and going all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court, we got over $50 million invested in our electrical infrastructure, and so the power now stays on in Northern Illinois, even when it rains. I also created a legal aid clinic in my town. I did a human services needs assessment, focusing on the needs of youth, seniors, people with disabilities, immigrants, and people who are economically disadvantaged. And from that study, we found that people did not have access to justice. So we created a legal aid clinic about 2.5 years ago. We focus on housing, immigration, and domestic violence. We've helped over 400 cases in the 2 years that we've been open. We have 100 attorneys, translators, and social workers, because I strongly feel that if you're at risk of losing your home, or losing your family, or losing your life, you should have access to justice. And so this is a model that's worked for us, and it's a model that I would bring across the state to all regions, because we know so many of our families are hurting right now across the state of Illinois. A little bit about my background. I went to public school, and I feel very strongly that every child deserves an excellent education, no matter where they live. I went to Stanford for college, where I majored in economics. I got my MBA from Northwestern, and I went to work for General Motors in finance. I then came back to the University of Chicago for law school and practiced healthcare law with McDermott, Will & Emery in Chicago, rooting out corruption and fraud and abuse in our healthcare system. I share all of this with you because I have a record of getting things done, and I have a passion for advocacy. That's how my parents raised me. If you see a problem, say something. Don't just complain about it. Take action. Make sure something works. And as a mayor, I've been responsible for a $90 million budget, over 300 employees, creating a culture of ethics and fighting corruption at City Hall, making sure that our agenda meets the needs of our constituents, balancing that budget, pulling together those resources, and moving that agenda forward. This race really matters. Our civil rights, our human rights, the very fundamental rights of our democracy are under attack. And with this president, we know that the rights of refugees, the rights of immigrants, the rights of people who are just trying to start their lives over, the people who are just trying to get a place to live, get a job, get an education, are under attack. It's incredibly important that you vote on March 20th. There is a woman running on the other side. She is being funded by Bruce Rauner. She does not support a woman's right to choose. She thinks Donald Trump is doing a great job. She cannot be our next Attorney General. One of the most important parts of the Attorney General's office is the Immigrants' Rights Bureau. If somebody thinks that Donald Trump is doing a good job, I hate to see what that Immigrants' Rights Bureau is going to look like under her leadership. So I ask for your support. As a mayor, I am always accessible. I would maintain that open door policy as Attorney General. Again, I'm Nancy Rotering. I would love your support, and thank you so much for being part of this process.
Thank you, Miss Nancy Rotering, for that beautiful speech. Every child deserves an excellent educator is actually the slogan of the Golden Apple Foundation, which is an awesome foundation that supports education in Illinois. So I don't even think you realized that you quoted them, but it was beautiful. Thank you. Moving forward, we are going to move towards the State Senate 8th District race. So our first Democratic candidate speaking will be Mr. Ira Silverstein. Yep.
sit through all these political speeches, you should give yourself a round of applause for doing this, listening to all that. My name is Ira Silverstein. I represent the 8th Legislative District in Illinois, which covers Skokie, Lincolnwood, Niles, Morton Grove, the 50th Ward, who has a really good alderman, my wife, and the 39th Ward. I'm running for re-election. Daniel Sitson talked about the community care program, which is very dear to my heart. I was very upset when the governor vetoed it, and I give you my word, I will vote to override his veto when it comes before the Illinois Senate, hopefully very soon. My mother's, God bless her, is 91 years old, and all seniors depend on this every single day for their care, and I really think it's an important issue. I'm an advocate for gun control, I'm an advocate for universal health care, and I'm an advocate to help anyone needy. Our communities are very similar. We care for our elderly individuals, and we care for our young people. We live in a state that, unfortunately, there's a dysfunction between the legislative branch and the executive branch. We have to do more to help the middle class, such as property tax freezes and other things. So I hope that I get your support, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ira Silverstein. So I just got an updated list of who has checked in and who is still here. So I apologize for that one oversight, but we do have other candidates from the Attorney General race running against Aaron Goldstein and Miss Nancy Rotering. So I would like to welcome a candidate running for Attorney General, Mr. Pat Quinn.
It's an honor to be here with the community and a beautiful center, and I'm running for Attorney General. As you know, I was governor of our state for 6 years, and we had a very close relationship with the Assyrian community. We always will. It's very important. When I was governor, I understood how important it is to protect all of those who come to our state. I signed the bill that allowed folks who didn't have documents to get driver's licenses. And literally, hundreds of thousands of men and women have been able to get a driver's license in Illinois because of that law. I also had a program, and a very important program, to welcome new Americans to the state of Illinois. It's important that we be a welcoming society. That's what I aspire to every day of my life. My grandparents were immigrants to this country. It's very important that when they come to Illinois, the land of Lincoln, that everyone feels welcome. And I, as governor for 6 years, invested in programs to make sure that everybody had a good start when they came to our state. We understand how important it is to welcome those who are refugees from violence or political or religious persecution. This is the heart of Illinois, and it's very, very important that we always maintain that and be leaders in our country. Also, as governor, there was a program called Secure Communities, a bad program. I was the first governor in America to send that program back to Washington. It tried to deputize our law enforcement right here in Illinois to work for the immigration officials. After I acted, the states of California, New York, and Massachusetts, and many other states said the same thing. This is not the way we want our local law enforcement to act. We want to be a welcoming society. We don't want people to be afraid of their local police. So these are the fundamental issues that I think deal with civil rights and human rights. Human rights are something that all of us have to always protect. And as Attorney General of Illinois, that's what I'm running for on March 20th. It's important to be the lawyer for the people of Illinois. And that means all the people, every single person. And if Donald Trump attempts to take away fundamental human rights from the people of our state or folks who are living in our state, it's the job of the Attorney General to take on Trump and his allies and his cabinet. I know how to do that. I've been in public life for quite some time. I've been able to pass a lot of important laws and administer those laws to make sure people are safe. And I think you need an Attorney General with that kind of experience. I started a group a long time ago, years ago, 35 years ago, called the Citizen Utility Board. Here's the first envelope of the Citizen Utility Board. If you're not happy with your utility bill, if you don't think it's fair, whether it's Commonwealth Edison or People's Gas or Nicor or AT&T. We have an organization in Illinois, a consumer group, to take on the big utilities and to get justice and to get refunds and to change their practices. I started that group, and I think it's very, very important that the Attorney General work at all times to be a lawyer for the consumers of our state. I do not accept campaign contributions from these big utility companies. I don't think that's the way to go. If you're going to be a lawyer for the people, a lawyer for the consumer, you got to make sure you're not taking campaign money from them. And it's important, I think, when you're running for Attorney General, to always understand what everyday people are all about. Folks who live from paycheck to paycheck. Folks who are worried about their families and their jobs and their livelihoods and their retirements and their health care benefits. I heard earlier the talk about the community care program. Well, I was the governor who maintained and invested in that program and protected that program. The person who came after me obviously is trying to wreck the program. We can't allow them to do that. We've got to stand up for decent health care for every single person. And I walked across Illinois from the Mississippi River in Rock Island all the way to Chicago and Lake Michigan on behalf of decent health care for every single person in Illinois. I believe in that. I signed the bill for the Affordable Care Act in Illinois, and we added over 1 million people to health care in our state. A very important mission indeed. So we're not going to let Trump take away our health care. We're not going to let Rauner take away our community care. We're not going to let Trump and his allies step on immigrants or anybody who needs a helping hand. It's important that all of us band together in the best traditions of Illinois, the best traditions of the Assyrian community, and make the will of the people the law of the land. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate Pat Quinn. Moving forward in the Attorney General race, we would like to please join me in welcoming Renato Mariotti to the stage.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone in the Assyrian community for coming here tonight. I know it's a cold day and a snowy day, so I appreciate your time. My name is Renato Mariotti. I'm also running for Attorney General. I'm different than some of the other candidates. You can probably tell I'm not a politician. I haven't been in office for decades. I am somebody who's new, who's coming with a different kind of experience. I'm a former federal prosecutor, and I've spent years trying cases and investigating crime. And I think that that's the kind of experience you need to be Attorney General. It's a lawyer job. It's not a politics job. It's a job where you are out there managing hundreds of attorneys on behalf of people like yourselves. That's why I'm running for Attorney General, to be the attorney for people like you. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Chicago. My father's family was from Cicero. My mom's family was from Little Italy. You can probably guess by my name that I'm just slightly Italian. Both of my parents worked 2 jobs to put me through school. My dad was a barber during the day, and he delivered newspapers at night. My mom answered phones at the local State Farm insurance agent during the day, and at night she sewed crafts with my grandma, and I would go to the craft shows and help them sell the crafts. That's how we made ends meet. My parents didn't go to college. My dad didn't even graduate high school. But thanks to their hard work, I was able to go to the University of Chicago. I went to Yale Law School. That's I think, the American dream that caused my family to come here from overseas. My grandfather came over here in a boat so that I could have that opportunity. So fortunately, I had that education. I was able to work. Pat Fitzgerald hired me. I became a federal prosecutor, and I did that for almost a decade. I'm 41 now. And I was fortunate to prosecute all sorts of crimes. I prosecuted everything from human trafficking and child exploitation, kidnapping. But I went after a lot of white-collar crime. That's what I was best known for. People who manipulated our financial markets, people who preyed upon our seniors, people who preyed upon vulnerable minority groups. I went after people who took advantage of the system. Now, in late 2015 and early 2016, I had a series of difficult trials that I was fortunate enough to win. And at the same time, I also had a difficult battle against cancer, which I was fortunate to win. Thank you. You know, and frankly, I was thankful to have good government health care. And if I wasn't a government employee, you know, God forbid, I might not have had the health care I needed to get the care that saved my life. But I was fortunate after that time. I left the U.S. Attorney's Office once I got a clean bill of health back about a year and a half ago, and I thought I was going to be slowing down. And if anything, I sped up a little bit because Donald Trump was on the ballot. There was a lot of work to do. I spent time working on behalf of all sorts of candidates here in Illinois, whether it's Tammy Duckworth and Hillary Clinton and candidates all on down, doing whatever I could on their behalf, and working for the Sierra Club and working for Lawyers for Choice, which I'm co-chair of. But I'll tell you, my effort and energy level went up even more when Donald Trump got elected, because I saw him talking in hateful terms about people who are coming to this country like my family, people who did nothing wrong but be people that he didn't like, that he could scapegoat. It was wrong. It was wrong. It's evil. And frankly, all of us need to do what we can to step up against Donald Trump, because if you're not doing something, then you're part of the problem. So, absolutely right. All of us have to. All of us do. We can't sit in Washington and wait for the people in Washington or Springfield to solve our problems for us, because frankly, they're not getting it done. We all have to work together. We all have to band together to fight Donald Trump. So what have I been doing? I'm writing. Some of you may have seen I've written like 30 op-eds in the last year. The New York Times published one of mine last weekend. I've been talking on television, social media, wherever I can about the evils of the Trump administration and the legal problems that they have. But when I saw this opportunity, I didn't expect it to come. I thought that Lisa Madigan was going to be the Attorney General for the rest of my life, or at least the rest of my adult life. But when that opportunity opened up, I saw an opportunity to take an office where there are Attorney Generals across this country, and thank God for them, who are standing up against the travel ban, you know, bringing lawsuits to the Attorney Generals of Hawaii and Washington. That travel ban is going to be pending in the Supreme Court next month. Thanks to their efforts, they were able to stop Donald Trump. I want to be an Attorney General on behalf of the dreamers, on behalf of the people who are being harmed, like the people that I vindicated as a federal prosecutor. Seniors who are being harmed in our state, people who are struggling to make ends meet and need an attorney to fight for them. That's why I'm running for Attorney General. And I'm running a grassroots campaign. I'm not accepting money from utilities. I'm not accepting money from any special interest. I am running a grassroots campaign with small money contributions and the volunteer efforts of thousands of people across the state. And I want you to join our effort. So consider joining our campaign. My website's RenatoMariotti.com. A hard to spell Italian name, RenatoMariotti. Consider joining our campaign. Consider supporting us. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Made it off the stage in one piece. Let's give him a nice round of applause. Thank you for your speech, Mr. Renato Mariotti. Sorry. Next up, we would like to welcome in the Attorney General race, Mr. Scott Drury.
And skip that stare. Good evening, everybody. How are you? My name is Scott Drury, and I'm running for Attorney General to clean up the state of Illinois. I want you to imagine with me for a minute an Illinois that is not corrupt. Just take a second and imagine what that would be like. Politicians working on behalf of you, politicians who don't want to line their pockets, politicians who don't see every piece of legislation that comes to the General Assembly as a way to benefit them. I came to be standing here before you via two paths. I was an assistant U.S. attorney in Chicago for 7.5 years. I worked under Pat Fitzgerald that entire time, and I worked on public corruption. I saw the worst in Illinois government, face to face. I sat with the people who told me, Scott, the government's corrupt. I had to do what I did because if I didn't, my neighbor would do it. And if my neighbor didn't do it, then their neighbor would do it. And so I realized that the corruption wasn't just at the top. It wasn't just Governor Ryan. It wasn't just Governor Blagojevich. It had infiltrated its way all the way down into the everyday worker who thought he or she had to cheat to get ahead in our government. I put some of those politicians in jail when there were rogue police who were not serving and protecting. When there were rogue police who were not serving and protecting, but they were beating and assaulting innocent people, I brought the civil rights action that put that police officer in prison, because police every single day should be working to serve and protect, and if there are bad police out there, we need to get them off the streets so the good police can do their jobs. Now, after 7.5 years of doing that work and working to take guns off of our street, I decided maybe I could help clean up Illinois from the inside. So I hung a shingle and I ran for state representative. I'm currently in that position, serving in my 3rd term. And when I got to the State House, I just picked up where I had left off at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I wanted to tackle corruption, so I set upon introducing the People's Plan, a 13-point plan to stop public corruption, to put corrupt politicians in prison. And we've passed some of it, but we haven't been able to do enough. And I've also been a Democrat who says, you know what, it's not enough just to say I'm going to be independent. It's not enough just to say I'm going to work for people. You have to put your words and your actions, you have to put your actions where your words are. And so this year, this term, I became the first Democrat, the only Democrat in the last 30 years who didn't vote for Mike Madigan to be the Speaker of the Illinois House. And I did that because that's what all of you wanted. That's what my district wanted. They kept saying, why does this one person make all of the decisions for the state of Illinois? The state's not going so well. And let's face it, the state wasn't going well before Governor Rauner got here. And in a large part, the reason Governor Rauner got here is because people no longer had belief in our vision as Democrats. And so I believe that if we want to move the state forward, we can't keep electing the same old people who got us here. We have to put people into office who have a vision for the future, a vision to move Illinois forward, a vision where we can imagine an Illinois that is not corrupt, an Illinois that works for us every single day, an Illinois that when people say trust and Illinois in the same sentence, they don't laugh. I want an Illinois Attorney General's office that is on par with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago, an Attorney General's office that is going after corruption, not outsourcing it to the federal government, not outsourcing it to the Chicago Tribune, not outsourcing it to the Better Government Association, an Attorney General's office that you know every single day that every decision is being made because it's made on your behalf, not on behalf of the powerful politicians that got us here. We need an Attorney General who's going to stand up, not just to Donald Trump, but stand up for all of us. You know, this year I remember waking up, I was watching TV with my son, and we saw the marches in Charlottesville, and how scary that was to turn on the TV and see that in 2017 that was going on in the United States of America. And that people were so racist, and they finally decided it was okay for them to come out and be racist publicly again. And people said, oh, that was an attack on Charlottesville. That was an attack on the United States of America. That was an attack in Skokie. That was an attack in Highland Park. That was an attack downstate. And we need to stand up against that. And that's what I will do. And not just because I said I will do it, but because I have stood up to the most powerful interests. I have stood up to the NRA. I have stood up to the insurance companies. And I have stood up to people in my own party. In my own party when I thought they weren't working on our behalf. I'm running for Attorney General to clean up the state of Illinois. My name is Scott Drury. My hope is not just to earn your votes, but to earn your trust. Thank you so much.
We will be having a surrogate speaker for the Attorney General campaign for Kwame Raoul. Please welcome the surrogate speaker for Kwame Raoul.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Joe Duffy. I am Senator Raoul's campaign manager, and appreciate y'all having us today. Senator Raoul could not make it today. He had a prior commitment. But it's great to join all of you today. I'm actually from Northbrook, and my grandmother lives in Morton Grove, so any excuse to get out of the campaign office and see her and spend time with you fine people is great. Senator Raoul is a proud son of Haitian immigrants that came to Chicago in 1960 for the American dream. Senator Raoul's father was a community physician on the south side of Chicago. and understands the importance of quality, affordable health care, and really passed on that message to Senator Raoul and his two sisters, or his two daughters, throughout his career. Senator Raoul started his career as a lawyer after Chicago-Kent Law School, and prior to that at DePaul University getting his undergrad. In 25 years, he started his 25-year legal career. He started out in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, followed by representing city colleges of Chicago, and currently is a lawyer at Quarles and Brady Law Firm. Senator Raoul was appointed to the state senate following the vacancy by then State Senator Barack Obama when he was appointed to, or he's elected to the U.S. Senate. And in his 13 years in the state capitol, Senator Raoul has done significant things in terms of passing legislation to abolish the death penalty, passing the strongest voting rights acts in the country, among other legislation in Springfield. Senator Raoul has also really taken on the charge in terms of criminal justice reform, in terms of passing legislation to increase background checks on private gun sales, among many other things. And Senator Raoul wishes he could be here today, but understands the importance of protecting immigrants throughout this country. Senator Raoul has also received endorsements from a variety of different organizations across the state, including recently the Illinois Federation of Teachers, the Illinois Illinois AFL-CIO, and among a variety of different organizations. So to learn more information about Senator Raoul, we encourage you to go to KwameRaoul.com. Thanks again for your time, and we really appreciate you having us today. Thanks.
Thank you. And for the final speaker for the Attorney General campaign, we'll be having a surrogate speaker for Miss Sharon Fairley. Is there a surrogate speaker for Miss Sharon Fairley? Okay, that sums it up for the Attorney General race. Thank you. All right, moving forward, we already heard from Mr. Ira Silverstein for the State Senate 8th District. And we will hear from Miss Caroline McTeer Fournier. Please join me in welcoming Miss Caroline McTeer Fournier.
Thank you. Hi, thanks everyone for having me here tonight. My name is Caroline McTeer Fournier. I was a little nervous walking up here, but glad I made it up here safely. I'm a candidate for the 8th State Senate District. I want to tell you a little bit about my background. But at the end of October, when I heard about the sexual harassment allegations against Ira Silverstein, I was angry. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I was very upset, and I decided I'm not going to sit idly by, that it was time for me to take action. And so I did. On November 8th, I announced my candidacy, 2 days after having back surgery. We collected 2,800 signatures in less than 4 weeks to get on the ballot, and here I am today. So let me give you a little more information about who I am and why this is so important to me. So when I was 11, seizures entered my life, and shortly thereafter I was diagnosed with epilepsy. I'm telling you this because I had amazing health insurance my whole life. Because of that, I'm able to stand here today, live a highly functioning, normal life despite living with this chronic illness. Every resident in Illinois should have the same access to health care that I have had my whole life. Growing up, my mom and dad dedicated themselves to finding me the best doctors, the best medication. I tried about 10 different seizure drugs before having brain surgery in 2004. It was all because of healthcare that I was able to have that. Every time I take my medicine, I think, gosh, I'm so lucky I can afford this medication, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be something that I have to think I'm lucky to have. Everyone should have the same access to healthcare I've had, and I will fight for that. It's very, as you can tell, it's very personal to me and my family. I'm proud to have been appointed by Governor Quinn to ICHIP, the Illinois Comprehensive Health Insurance Board, in 2013. And that's an organization in Illinois that provides health care to families whose loved ones have pre-existing conditions. I'm also the former president of the Danny Did Foundation, an organization that helps to create awareness of epilepsy. And we raise money to buy seizure monitors for families whose loved ones battle epilepsy, but can't afford those monitors. So being president of that board, I had the amazing opportunity to go to Springfield as an advocate and fight to ensure that this chronic illness, epilepsy, would be included in the list of conditions covered under the medical cannabis pilot plan. So it's wonderful in Illinois that we have this medical cannabis pilot program that is legal, but as the president of that organization, it was really a rewarding day when Governor Quinn signed that law. I was at that bill signing, and I looked around the room and I saw parents who had had the chance to talk to throughout the experience, who had hope in their eyes, who knew that their little children now had access to an alternate form of medication because those pharmaceutical drugs weren't helping them. The pharmaceutical industry is a whole nother thing, but healthcare is an issue that I will fight for. And with what's going on at the federal level, we need to ensure that we're all very, very aware and not letting our guards down with that. It's great that we have the Medicaid expansion here in Illinois, but we need to continue to be fighters for that, and I am a champion on that issue. Women's reproductive rights is another area that I've been an advocate for several years fighting for to protect. Again, at the national level, we know women's reproductive rights are under attack throughout the country, and with our current governor and with our current president, we don't know what's going to happen. I was in Springfield fighting to ensure that HB 40 was signed, and it was a good day when Governor Rotering did sign that. But we don't know what's going to happen next. And as the board member of Personal PAC for 4 years, I was right in the front lines of that issue, and I will continue to do that. We need to not just protect choice, but we need to preserve the entire spectrum of reproductive rights in Illinois, and I will do that. It's not a talking point, it's a bedrock value of mine that I've had for most of my life. I will also ensure that we have excellent public education in Illinois. Public education should be an equal playing field. My daughter goes to Sauganash Elementary. I'm a proud parent of a Chicago public school student. I'm on the local school council at Sauganash. Every day when I drop her off, I think, wow, we're so lucky she's going to this great school, getting a great education. But again, it shouldn't be that way. Every parent throughout our city, throughout our communities, when they leave their kids at school, they should feel like they know their child is going to thrive in that educational environment. Well, we have a new funding formula in Illinois for our schools. It's not perfect, but at least we've made some progress. I will be an advocate and a champion in Springfield to ensure that all kids in our state have access to quality education. And lastly, I want to touch on my family history, and I will really ensure that the working rights of men and women are not under attack. I think we would all agree that Rotering has declared war on unions. In 1905, my grandfather was born in Ireland. He came here, started working for the railroads in 1935. Thanks to him joining a union, he was able to work in a safe environment with his fellow railway carmen, and he was able to provide a living for his family. I mention that because we need to be aware, we need to fight for and ensure that the working men and women in Illinois are protected, and that Governor Rotering and other Republicans don't continue to fight to take away their working rights. So I'd really love your support on March 20th. Again, my name is Caroline McAteer. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we will have another candidate for the State Senate 8th District, Mr. Ram Villavalam.
She said my name perfectly. Well done. My name is Ram Villavalam. I am a Democratic candidate for state senator in the 8th District. Just as a refresher, the 8th District has 21 neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. It goes from Montrose Avenue all the way north, all of Devon Avenue. We have Lincolnwood, Skokie, Niles, Morton Grove, and Glenview. And I'm running because I strongly believe we need a new generation in government. We need more diversity in government, and we need people that are actually going to lead on the challenging issues we face. My story is not different from many of you in the audience. My parents came here from India in the 1970s. My dad was an engineer in India, my mom was a teacher, but they couldn't get those jobs when they came here. They had to work as a dishwasher for $2.30 an hour, and AMVETS as a cashier for $2.30. And they eventually went back to school and finished with 25 years of a career in public service. But I'll never forget that struggle. I'll never forget what they went through to give me the opportunities that I have today. And that's what stays with me. As I go out and knock on doors and talk to people and come to forums like this, that's the same struggle that everyone is having. Whether it's the need to increase the minimum wage, equitably fund our schools, make sure we reduce gun violence, and yes, make sure we're making inroads on our healthcare system. I am committed to fighting on those fronts. My background is in healthcare. I've advocated to protect home care for seniors and people with disabilities. We talk about the community care program. I was in the front lines fighting with Senator Biss to make sure that Governor Rauner did not cut the community care program. He thinks it's okay for a senior to get a voucher to a McDonald's instead of having their home care provider provide the meal for them. That's not right. That's not how I was raised. That's not how we should treat our elderly. That is what I'm standing for. I've also worked at the federal level to put on job fairs for people looking for work, small business advocacy resource fairs, veterans resource fairs, community events that really are what our elected officials should be doing. They should be out there putting on events that actually bring resources to the community. That's what I'm committed to, that's my experience, and that's what I'm going to take to the Illinois State Senate. You know, unfortunately, Senator Silverstein, he violated the Ethics Act. He's been there for 20 years. We think it's time for a change. We need someone that's going to be effective for our community moving forward. And I am especially honored to be here today because I truly believe in what you all are doing. I'm actually president of the Indo-American Democratic Organization, and our mission is also to get South Asian Americans involved in the political process, from registering to vote or running for office. And that's important. There's a saying that goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I don't want to be on the menu. I don't know about you all. And that's why I truly believe in what you all are doing, registering voters, getting involved, actively involved in the political process. That's what's going to make the difference. Our elected officials need to hear from you all about the challenging issues that you're facing. And that's what I'm committed to. As the next state senator in this district, I will be out there in the community. I will be an outspoken advocate for every community, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm proud to be endorsed by Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, the Sierra Club, Equality Illinois, and others. This is at a time, now more than ever, we need people that are going to speak out against discrimination. And I'm proud to have the endorsements that I do because those folks, those organizations, they trust me to do that. They trust me to be an outspoken advocate for people in our community. So with that, I would like to ask for your support. March 20th is the election. Please vote for me, and thank you so much for having me.
All right, and we have another candidate running in that 8th District State Senate race. Please join me in welcoming David Zulke.
Hello everyone, my name is David Zulke. For ease of access, you can find me at votezulke.com. Yes, my name is David Zulke. I'm running for Illinois State Senate, the 8th Legislative District. Illinois needs new leadership. I'm running because Illinois has a budget problem. We have a deficit that's just growing, and money's not going to where it should be going. I didn't get in this race because an opportunity presented itself. I got in this race because Illinois needs new leadership. I'm from Illinois. I'm from the area. I'm from the 8th District. I went to Loyola Academy High School. I went to University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana for undergraduate degree. I went to John Marshall Law School. And before that, I actually went to Oakton Community College for emergency medical technician basic class, training class, to be for the first steps to become a first responder in the paralegal business. I'm trying to be a realistic, straightforward, and common sense candidate. My platform is common sense and common courtesy to everyone. I'm not just representing the Assyrian community, but I'm representing the whole 8th District, and I'm going to follow your interests to the best of my ability and the best of our ability to make Illinois a state where people actually want to live. One of the concerns, the primary concern, as I mentioned, is the budget. You don't get more funding without having a budget that harnesses our tax bills and gets what we're looking for. In order to do that, I think it's important that we take a step back and take a look at where our money is going. We have to review and reanalyze how our money is being spent and refocus it, reapportion it appropriately to make sure we're getting the most efficient bang for our buck. Another thing I'm annoyed with our government is some of the deceptive and predatory legislation, as I call it, which concerns the legislation that the pension reform bill, which was unconstitutional in its face, and just wasted taxpayer money in that challenge, in the court challenge, and found it unconstitutional. And then you have the predatory legislation out there, which I refer to the speed cameras, which are not placed at places to protect the pedestrian safety or vehicular safety. Those are basic concerns that our government should pass legislation that makes sense in purpose and function to all of us. One of the aspects of revenue generation without raising taxes, which is not popular with everyone, but we've seen with other states, is legalization of marijuana. That could reduce costs in our prison systems, in and even in our opioid crisis, because people wouldn't have the same access they have to some of these hard drugs that are more prevalent when you talk to when you're talking to the wrong people. Because just because something's legal doesn't necessarily make it go away or get fixed. Just because something's, let me rephrase that for you. Just because something's legal does not necessarily make it right, and just because something's illegal does not make the problem go away. We have to be realists, we have to have practical mindedness in mind, and with that, I'll tell you my platform is common sense and common courtesy to everyone, along with, and if we just stayed true to those values, we could have an Illinois government that makes laws that helps Illinois prosper. If we followed the golden rule to treat other people as we'd like to be treated, Illinois, we wouldn't have these questions about immigrants and their rights and our rights, but we'd have a good law that promotes everybody and promotes all Assyrians to a better life. Thank you very much. My name is David Zolke. I hope you vote for me this March 20th, 2018. And I appreciate your time, and I'm grateful to have me in this lovely facility.
Thank you, David Zolke. That wraps it up for the State Senate 8th District. Moving forward, we are going to hear from the only candidate that is in attendance. We have Carrie Steele running for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation seat. Please join me in welcoming Carrie Steele.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Well, first, thank you for hosting this awesome candidates forum this evening. As stated, my name is Carrie Steele, and I'm one of your Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners at Water Reclamation is a 9-member board that covers all of Cook County. Every 2 years, there are 3 vacancies. So in this upcoming election, you can vote for up to 3 people in my race for the 6-year term. Of that 9-member board that represents all of Cook County, my unique qualification is that I am the only chemist serving on the board. I have experience working at both Jardine Water Purification Plant and the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. I've worked as a lab tech, a water sampler, and a water chemist. My scientific background is extremely important at water reclamation because we treat your wastewater and we manage flood control. Basically, a scientist is a great asset to have on the board because we're protecting our primary water source, Lake Michigan, which is where we get our drinking water from. I'm asking for your support this evening because we need professional diversity at water reclamation. I have endorsements from Chicago Federation of Labor, the Sierra Club, Citizen Action, IBI-IPO, the Democratic Party, and a lot of other organizations that you can view on my website, electcarriesteele.com. But the most important endorsement I can ask for this evening, of course, is the endorsement of all of you sitting here. So I'm asking for you to please support my race, support my candidacy, and I need your vote on March 20th. Or you can early vote. But either way, I need your vote. Please visit my website, Elect Carrie Steele. I'm also on social media under Commissioner Carrie Steele. And thank you, my punch number is 63. 63 for me, Carrie K. Steele. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carrie Steele, for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation seat. Moving forward, we are going to hear from the only candidate in the State Senate 9th District. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Laura Fine.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this cold, snowy night. My name is Laura Fine. I am currently the state representative in the 17th District. I am serving my 3rd term, and this year I'm running for the 9th Senate seat that's being vacated by Daniel Biss in his run for governor. Prior to serving in the Illinois House, I taught for about 15 years at Northeastern Illinois University in the political science department, and prior to that, I worked for about a dozen years in the media. In the Illinois House, I am the chairman of the Insurance Committee, the vice chairman of the Mental Health Committee, and I also serve on Human Services, Higher Ed Appropriations, and the Environment. So you may be asking yourselves, with an education and media background, why do I chair the Insurance Committee? And that's part of my story that brought me here, and that story began about 8 years ago. And on that day in April, my husband was driving to work, and I was at a spin class. And while I was at that class, I had a tap on my shoulder, and I was told I had an emergency phone call at the front desk. So I assumed it was my 10-year-old child calling to tell me that he forgot his lunch, because that would be an emergency. But unfortunately, it was the chaplain at the Lutheran General Hospital calling to tell me that my husband had been in a car accident. And he wouldn't tell me why. He said, the doctor will explain it to you when we get there. So when I arrived at the hospital, I found out that while he was driving to work, a truck headed in the other direction, hit him head on, drove over his car, and amputated his arm at the scene. We were very fortunate that he survived the accident, but the lessons we learned about insurance were devastating. The first thing we found out that the person that hit him had the minimum amount of auto insurance you need to carry in the state of Illinois, which was $20,000 at the time. So my husband spent many weeks in the intensive care unit, 6 weeks in the hospital, had 8 surgeries and then 2 surgeries later. And we thought, okay, well, we have this $20,000 that maybe covered the first day in the emergency room, but at least we have our own health insurance, so we'll be covered. When he got out of the hospital and arrived home, we were told by an insurance company that call us at any time if you start getting bills and you don't understand anything, and we'll talk you through it. So then we started getting unpaid bills, and keep in mind this was before the Affordable Care Act took place. And so I called my contact at the insurance company who said to me, "I'm sorry, I can't talk to you." And then we later found out through a lawyer that they were trying to rescind our policy and refuse payment on all of our medical bills. So now we had the situation where we had about $600,000 in bills, and my husband is trying to adjust to a new life with one arm and constant pain. This put us into a downward spiral. Unfortunately, a suicidal spiral for my husband, who fortunately survived that incident. But what this did for me was told me that insurance legislation needs to be changed in Illinois. So I didn't put my head in the sand. I got angry and I moved forward. And I contacted some of my state legislators to say, I've been doing a lot of research on this, and this is what needs to be changed in insurance in Illinois. And then the perfect storm happened when my state senator decided that he was not going to run, and Daniel, who was my state representative at the time, decided he was going to run for the Senate. And I got a phone call saying, well, you've been working on this legislation, why don't you run for the House seat? So before I knew it, I was running for the House with the goal of insurance reform in the state of Illinois. So the first bill that I passed when I was elected was increasing the minimum auto liability insurance that you need to carry in the state of Illinois, because I know how much personally that can help someone. But I didn't stop there. Most of my most of my legislation has focused on insurance reform. I've passed bills that say if your doctor prescribes a medication for you, your insurance company needs to respond in 72 hours whether they're going to approve or deny that medication, or your medication is going to be covered. I passed legislation that says if you are on a number of different medications, your pharmacist can synchronize those medications so you can refill them all at the same time. We were one of the first states that was able to pass something called step therapy, or fail first. And what that means is if your doctor prescribes for you a medication, your insurance company might say, well, you have to try and fail medication A and then try and fail at medication B before we'll prescribe for you the medication that your doctor says will work for you. And this is leaving people in a spiral, back in the hospital, missing work. So we were one of the first states that was able to pass legislation that says your doctor can prescribe for you the medication that works and not your insurance company. I was also able to pass legislation that says if you have a child with developmental disabilities and need to take that child to the dentist, your medical insurance will cover sedation, because families were telling me that their kids were not going to the dentist and they were having health problems because of dental work that needed to be done. I passed legislation to expand the definition of eating disorders to help people with this mental health crisis. And this session, I'm working on passing legislation to provide medical insurance coverage for children who need hearing aids, and also to make sure that when you start your new insurance policy plan year, your drug prices will stay the same throughout the year and they will not spike during the middle of that contract year. So I now have many advocates in the House that work with me on the legislation that I've been working on, and now it's my goal to be that advocate in the Senate so we can get more things done for the people in Illinois. So thank you so much for coming out tonight, and I hope you will support me in my quest to make sure that the consumer is heard. Thank you.
So gubernatorial candidate Daniel Biss is running for governor. He actually vacated that state Senate 9th seat, which Ms. Laura Fine is running for Daniel Biss's old seat. And moving forward, we are going to get into the state representatives for the 17th district, which is what she just vacated. So please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Ms. Candace Chow.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Candace Chow, and it's spelled can dance because I can. Come on, a little bit more loud. I can, but my children forbid me to show you. They said that was the one thing they would not tolerate in this campaign, was for me to dance. So I'm here today, same reason many of you. I want all of our children and our grandchildren to grow up in this state and reach their full potential. That's why I got involved in public service 10 years ago in Evanston and Skokie, where I've served as board president of District 65, which is a K-8 district. We have 8,000 students and about 5,000 families that we serve. But going back from that, it started very early for me. I grew up in a small town of Pennsylvania in a trailer park, and I was raised by my mom by herself. She unfortunately never had the opportunity to graduate high school. She was raised in an orphanage until she was 18. And from the very beginning, she impressed upon me how important my education would be to me doing better, being self-sufficient, being economically self-sufficient in my life. I had the great blessings that we had strong public education where I grew up. We were able to access some of the government services that were critical to helping us, food, sustenance, other services when we really needed it most. And I was able to go on to school in DC and then ultimately come out here about 22 years ago to attend Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, where I received my MBA. I say all that because that is an example that should not be an exception. We all, and all of our children and grandchildren, should have the chance to move from one place to another in their lives. And I am very worried that we are bankrupting our children's future here in Illinois, and we need to change that now. That's why I'm running for State House of Representatives. I've tackled very difficult issues at the local level, and I want to take that to Springfield. As school board president in District 65, last year we faced the largest financial crisis we had faced in 30 years. We were looking at a $128 million deficit, and we were going to have to make disastrous cuts to our schools. So I worked diligently for about 3 years to reduce costs where we could, work with our educators to make our growth and expenses slow, and then ultimately we went to the community. We weren't going to get bailed out by Trump, certainly. We weren't going to get bailed out by Rauner. We took responsibility for having high-quality education in our community and passed a funding referendum by 80%. So that was a challenge. It was something that many people thought couldn't be done, and I once or twice thought couldn't be done. But we did it, and I think it's a great example of what we need to be doing in Springfield. So here are the skills that I bring to this position. I've had a great deal of financial experience since my MBA and working as an advisor to government agencies, nonprofits, and businesses over the last 20 years. I've managed a budget at District 65 that's $150-odd million. And I've seen firsthand what it's like to be the recipient of services that we need to provide so our families can thrive. Lastly, I've been an advocate in our community through the schools, which is a microcosm of everything that we are and what we want to be. I've seen things like an increase in the number of refugee families that have come to our schools. It quintupled over the last 3 years. And I started a task force with the city of Evanston, the city of Skokie, as well as our schools to look at how we could better support families that were transitioning into our community. Secondly, I saw families that didn't have enough affordable housing, had trouble making ends meet. I co-founded an organization called Caring Outreach by Parents of Evanston, which worked on providing crisis intervention for families that maybe didn't have the network of family or friends to help support them in times of need. And lastly, I joined, as I was working with various families and trying to get them affordable housing, I realized it was a really difficult process in Evanston and Skokie, and we had to do better. So I'm currently a board member of Community Partners Affordable Housing, which has brought 26 new units to Evanston and Skokie, affordable housing for families, particularly, that were not being serviced before. So, so these are the kinds of services that we need to provide our families so they can do what they need to do, support their children, support their loved ones in the community. I hope to bring this experience to Springfield. I can dance, and maybe I'll do that off the stage. Yes?
I I got a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, you mentioned about the housing, you know. I mean, we have in our community, many communities, that they are low income, they cannot afford houses. Now, they cannot get a house. There's people lined up on those houses, like 20, 30 people lined up. So, I mean, those houses you're talking about right now, there are so many people, there are already names for them.
Yes.
So, I mean, how we can do that to make it, like, who is the preferred to make those houses?
Well, to your question, I mean, affordable housing across this district is a real issue. It requires attention at the state, federal, and local level. We got to work together. The organization I'm part of has a land trust model, which means it basically is permanently affordable housing. Some problems with affordable housing legislation or statutes locally is that it's affordable for some period of time. We clearly have more demand than we have supply now, and we need to continue to work to bring more affordable housing to our communities. Most of the federal monies around affordable housing go to certain populations, and they aren't families. And so that's something where our localities and our state need to pick up the slack. So that's something I want to continue to work on. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Candace, for taking that question, the impromptu question, Mr. Raymond Oshana, even though that wasn't a part of the format. So we appreciate you answering the question. Moving forward to the next candidate in the State Representative 17th District seat, please help me in welcoming Pete Dager.
Good evening. My name is Pete Dager. Let's get two things out of the way right off the bat. First, my mother is from Zacho, up in the north. You're from Zacho, thank you. The second I'd like to say is each of the candidates that are competing in this race are here tonight and they honor us. And I want to say this is not an endorsement, but I'm very impressed with all four of them. They are very knowledgeable, very smart. We are lucky to have them in this race. One of us is going to be your state representative, okay? So I thank you very much for coming out here, and I thank them very much for coming out here too. They honor us and respect us in our community, that we are a growing community, and they came out here to say what they have to say tonight. If you like what they have to say, by all means vote for them. If you really like them, go out and volunteer for them. If you really, really like them, give them money too, okay? Now I say that, yes, they are competitors, but you know, we're not enemies. That's the difference between growing up in Iraq and Syria and growing up here. In Iraq and Syria, you make the wrong choice, that's it, right? Here you get a, hey, good job, maybe next time. So I strongly say, you know, thank you for coming on out here. You're going to hear from you heard from Candace. You'll also hear from Alexandra. You'll hear from Jennifer, and you'll hear from Mary Rita. I saw her. Oh, there you are. Okay, you'll also hear from Mary Rita. So thanks all for that. So we got that out of the way. So why am I running? I am running because I am disappointed in our leadership, and not just on the federal level, but on the state level, and yes, on the county level too. I think what's going on here, and I think that we are well-versed in seeing what's going on here because we are from countries where there's a lot of corruption. There's no oversight in how the money is getting spent. And it's all a friends and family kind of plan where if you've got connections, you're going to do okay. If you don't have connections, not so much. You're going to fund it. You're going to pay for it. And that's got to stop. So what I'd like to do in my first month as your state rep and serving, I'd like to basically come up with a plan, have the plan, and implement that plan. And that is, first and foremost, financial reporting. That's the first thing we need to do, is to see where is the money going, okay? In 2014, President Obama passed something called the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act, DATA Act. What it basically says is all the data that the federal government has to do, the federal agencies have to report forward, have to be searchable, it has to be transparent, and it has to be easy to understand. You don't need to be a forensic accountant to see where is the money going. At the time, the states were required to also adopt this, but that wasn't going to be until later. That was going to be in 2022. The states fought back, saying it's going to cost too much to implement and all that. That's a lot of BS. It's actually not going to cost a lot to implement. There are companies that want to implement it for free, okay? And I'll tell you about that if you want to talk about that later. But the only state that's adopted that is Ohio. If you ever want to see the future, go to a website called ohiocheckbook.com. And that is how you handle financial data. That is something searchable, and you can look at everything. If you want to know how much diesel fuel the Ohio Department of Education spent last month, how much of diesel fuel they bought last month, there it is. Now, why do you want to know that? I don't know, but maybe you sell diesel fuel, maybe you're a vendor, okay? And I'll get to the vending part later, but once we have transparency and accountability in our financial reporting, we can move on to the next thing, which is a law that we need desperately in this state. If you're a lawmaker, Republican or Democrat, you shouldn't be making money on the side with a property tax appeal business. Okay, I can't even begin that that's legal, but there it is. That's got to stop, and that stops both Democrats and Republicans. That's got to end. Why does it have to end? Because it is, in my opinion, it's corruption. Okay, again, if you're politically connected, you can get a tax break. If you're not so much. We have an $820 billion, that's with a B, $billion a year economy. We have plenty of money. I submit, and I may be wrong, but I submit that a lot of our problem is not so much a revenue problem. I'm going to say that it is more of a management of the revenue that we are getting, because we don't know where that money is going. We don't know where it's getting spent, and we don't know how effective that money is, okay? I could go on about the Chicago Water Department, that nobody has any clue what's going on. I can go about the Chicago Board of Education, an unelected school board, $600 million a year, 40 million of it went missing, and nobody knew. It took the federal government to come in and arrest the CEO there. This has got to stop. I want to mention about Cook County too. There are times I saw on the expenditures, 80% of Cook County's budget is for payroll. Now, some of that, yes, that's very good, but shouldn't more of that go to flu shots, mammograms, sheriff's department, protection at Cook County Jail, mental health treatment at Cook County? There's all these things that we need to know, but we don't have the financial reporting adequate enough to make these data-driven decisions. So I submit to you that we need to work on that. Part of our plan that the state of Illinois also needs is something that I'm going to basically say, we need an economic plan to grow business, grow our way out of the debt that we have, okay? What do we have, what core competency we have that we can do better than our competitors, and our competitors being other states, as well as large municipalities, as well as other countries. What do we have that we can do better? We have a pretty good transportation system, both rail, okay, as well as highways, as well as an airport. Now, our airport needs a lot of work, but we can move product, goods, and services if we keep funding that and developing that and growing that. I'm going to give you an example very quickly. Des Moines, Iowa. Des Moines, Iowa, which is 6 hours from here, is the second fastest growing city in America. I know you don't believe me, you can look it up. But why is it growing? Because Iowa lowered their energy costs, okay? The cost of electricity, they lowered it in Iowa. What happened next? Facebook, Google, every server farm, Whole Foods, anybody that has anything to do with storing data, they moved out there. They bought land and they built server farms, okay? Basically places to store data, okay? So you have a lot of people that left Silicon Valley and are now living out in Des Moines, Iowa, go figure. But that's a kind of an example of something we need in Illinois. What can we do to attract business? Right now, in order to attract business in Illinois, we're doing these Hail Mary things. We're saying to Amazon, hey, come out here and we're going to make sure that your kids get to go to a magnet school. They don't have to go to the regular schools in Chicago. They'll go to Walter Payton or Northside College Prep. We'll take care of you. That's not an economic plan, okay? That's a little under the table, wink, wink, and helping out one another. And we know about that because we're from countries where that kind of thing is the norm, and that's got to stop. So what do we want to do with this when we have this extra funding, when we have these dollars? I want to put it into healthcare, and I want to put it into education, because education is the great equalizer in this country, okay? Thank you. The beauty about education, if you get a good education, you can go on and do great things. You know, Candace had mentioned growing up as she did, education got her out, and she's done okay. Same with me. My parents were from the Middle East, but my mother raised me and my brother as a single parent. Education got us to go forward and got us to go out and grow up and do things. And I look at that and I say, if we took that money and we put it into world-class education from kindergarten through college, yes, reducing college costs, that's going to help us and help us more than probably other families that have been here for many, many years. We are an immigrant community. Some of us are foreign-born, some of us were born here, but you know what? This is home. This is where we're putting down our roots. We've invested in a university system here in Illinois, and we need to see lower costs so that our kids can get ahead and grow forward. You know, I'll close in just a second, but I want to say the first time I ever came to this building here, I was a very young boy, and it was the first time I came here was for a bar mitzvah, okay? The wonderful thing about Skokie is its diversity. The wonderful thing, and how we have it easy, you may not realize that, but what we have easy is, before us came African Americans that had to go through slavery and had to get lynched to try to vote. Before us came the Irish that were denied the right to work in certain places and denied the right to vote. Before us were the Chinese, who were basically considered not even citizens, not human, and they worked on the railroads and they built the railroads in this country. Before us came the Jews, and you know what they had gone through, but here it is. Okay, they've built this, and now we have a system, and all we have to do is vote, okay, and get involved in campaigns. Okay, don't just go with me because I'm Assyrian. Okay, don't do that. Go with me because you believe in this, and you believe that I want to do these things. Okay, last thing, and I'll just bring this up. One thing that I'm learning more and more about is something called the Vendor Assistance Program. I don't like what that is, but basically it means that Illinois can defer payments, and there's only 6 approved vendors, and guess what? All approved vendors have political connections to both the Republican and Democratic parties. That's got to stop. Last thing I want to say before I get off here is this. If you elect me, I promise that if a company like Hobby Lobby gives $1 million to ISIS to buy our artifacts from the Middle East, right? I'll make it difficult for Hobby Lobby to do business here in Illinois. I just think it ought to be a law that if you sponsor ISIS, you shouldn't be allowed to just go ahead and sell here whatever you want in Illinois. And I'm hoping, even if it's not me, I'm hoping that the person that is elected as a state rep will take a look at that and say, wait a minute, you know, we have to have some sort of rule about that. Because remember, $820 billion economy, we have business with Boeing. Okay, Boeing is headquartered here. We have business with Archer Daniels Midland, with Caterpillar, with McDonald's. They do business all over the world. It's one thing to say, hey, we want to help and we want to grow that economy. It's another to talk to these businesses and say, wait a minute, some of the things you're doing is hurting us, okay? I have a cousin who is a chief engineer at Boeing. He's actually the chief engineer for the Dreamliner. You should see the arguments we have about, my opinion, about Boeing sales to Saudi Arabia. That angers me to no end, okay? And I know it's business, but it's like when the Saudis turn around and start funding ISIS, well, you know, I have a problem with that, and I want to see something done about that. I want to leave you on a positive note. I'm very grateful for your time. I'm very grateful for the other candidates to come on up here. And I just want to say, March 20th is the election. Get out and vote. Tell your neighbors to vote. Tell family members to vote. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking, Pete Dager. Up next for the State Rep 17th District seat, Alexandra Eidenberg. Please join me in welcoming Alexandra Eidenberg.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. I'm Alexandra Eidenberg. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm excited to answer your questions and hear about the issues you care about. I was raised in a hardworking family. My dad owns a construction company, and my mom's a teacher. I remember watching her stay up late at night working on her lesson plans, and it's that hard work ethic that I know and appreciate, and it's been instilled in me. As I got into the world, I took a corporate job, and I was making an hourly rate while making the company millions of dollars, and that rate was not a living wage. I took a risk, and I started a business, something that my father had done, and I was excited to do as well. That company is here in Skokie. It's called The Insurance People. I specialize in health insurance, and I understand the ins and outs of the Affordable Care Act. I grew up in Chicago, and I'm a product of Chicago Public Schools. I went to Lane Tech, and I'm thrilled to have my friends and supporters here today in the Assyrian community. Minos Georges, thank you for being here. Carolyn Benjamin, thank you. As someone who's part Greek, I have spent a lot of time in the Assyrian and Serbian communities. We, band together, and I did just that at Lane. And I'm excited to be your voice, should I have the honor of being your legislator. I want to work on 3 things in Springfield. Number 1, I want to work on healthcare. As someone who understands health insurance, it's critical that we all have access to affordable healthcare. I'm also ready and willing to fight Rauner on home care and make sure that we expand home care and allow for jobs and taking care of our seniors. Number 2, I'm going to work on gun violence prevention. I want to make sure that things like bump stocks and silencers are not in our communities, making sure that our children are safe in our playgrounds and in our schools. And number 3, I want to focus on education. I want to make sure that all of our children have access to quality education, and I want to make sure that they have access to affordable higher education. I can't wait to be your voice and know all of you more. I'm Alexandra Eidenberg. I'm looking forward to being your fighter. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Alexandra Eidenberg. Continuing on with that State Representative 17th District seat, we will hear from Ms. Jennifer Gong Gershowitz. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Jennifer Gong Gershowitz.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Gong Gershowitz. Thank you so much for having me. It is truly an honor to be here. I'm running for state representative for the same reason that I stepped up to represent a 9-year-old victim of child sex trafficking. Because I believe that those who can make a difference have a responsibility to step up and do so. There was no roadmap for a child trafficking case, no precedent to protect her. So I stepped up to break new ground and found a way to win. When Donald Trump kicked off his campaign by kicking immigrants, I stepped up again to build the immigration practice at the Highland Park Highwood Legal Aid Clinic, serving as the first director during one of the most turbulent times that I can remember as a human rights advocate. I was determined to represent dreamers and their families, victims of domestic violence, and ensure that those in our community who need it have access to legal representation. Because filling the gaps and finding a way to protect the most vulnerable people in our society has been the bedrock for my career in human rights. Just as there was no roadmap for my first child trafficking case, there is no simple solution to the complex issues facing our state and our community, but I am up to the challenge. In January of 2016, there was executive order after executive order, 3 to be exact, in January alone. And I reached out to our current state representative and our next state senator, Laura Fine, to ask her to sit down with me and talk about what we could do at the state level. We were at a corner bakery in Glenview, and I had just recently given a Know Your Rights presentation to a parents association at Glenbrook South High School. And when we were sitting at a table, a gentleman came from the kitchen and stopped at our table, and he asked if I was the lawyer who had come to speak to parents at our high school, and I said that I was. He insisted that Laura and I take home muffins and cookies as a way to say thank you, because he had been afraid to leave his house since the election. Fighting back against extremism starts right here at home in our communities, and there is so much more that we can do. We need to expand on the protections of the Illinois Trust Act to include barring ICE from standing on our courthouse steps here in Illinois. We know that there are victims of domestic violence who are eligible for legal status under the Violence Against Women Act, who are afraid to go to court because right now we do have ICE agents that camp out on the steps of the Waukegan Courthouse. This is not acceptable, this is not who we are, and we can do better. We could also do better, Illinois, to fund our public schools and make sure that every child in this state has access to a world-class education like we have here in the 17th District. We can do better to make sure that everyone in our state has access to affordable health care, and we can make sure that our tax plan in Illinois ensures fairness so that there are not special breaks for people at the very top at the expense of working families. I built my career on the fundamental principles of equal opportunity and basic fairness. And this applies to everything we do in public service, whether it's education, healthcare, jobs, or the environment. I think the best way to know what somebody is going to do in the future is to look at what they've done in the past. I have built my entire career in service to others. I am the granddaughter of Chinese immigrants who faced discrimination and deportation under the Chinese Exclusion Acts. It was my grandparents' legacy that inspired me to do the work that I've done in immigration. And I have done that work for over 20 years. It would be my honor to represent this community. This community is incredibly diverse. It is home to one of the largest Asian American populations in the state of Illinois. And I would be the first Asian American representative of this district, and only the second Asian American elected to the Illinois legislature. I am proud to have the endorsement of the Indo-American Democratic Organization that supports diverse candidates from the Asian community running for the very first time. It would be my honor to have your support as well, and I thank you so much for having me here.
State Representative, 17th District seat, please join me in welcoming Miss Mary Rita Leckie.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. We are all immigrants here, and the United States would not be the country that it is today but for the contributions of people who came to our shores from everywhere throughout the world. And I welcome all of you, and I hope that you are having a wonderful experience in this country. My name is Mary Rita Leckie, and I am running for state representative in the 17th District. I am an attorney by training, and I have served people in this community as an attorney for 30 years. I started my practice doing federal civil rights litigation, representing people who had been injured by the police or who were fighting to preserve their First Amendment rights. Later, I began working as an attorney representing claimants before the Social Security Disability Administration, and I worked a lot with an organization called Heartland Alliance, which works with the immigrant community in the city of Chicago. I represented many refugees from Iran, Iraq, and Syria who were suffering physical and mental illnesses because of their experiences prior to coming to the United States. Thank you. I am happy to say that we were successful in gaining most of those people the benefits to which I believe they were entitled. I have also lived in this community for 30 years. I served on the school board in District 65. That is the school board that represents the children in all of Evanston and the northeast part of Skokie in the K-8 education system. I was president of that board for 2 years, and I believe that I developed the skills from being on the board to work with diverse populations, to deal with complex budgets. We completely rewrote all of our policies to make sure that we were having fair disciplinary procedures so that children of color were not being overly impacted by the day-to-day discipline that goes on in the schools. I was part of the contract negotiations with the teachers union, and I believe that we had a very well-functioning school and that I served the community well in that regard. If I'm elected to Springfield, I will, of course, be very concerned that the public schools are well funded. We need to have free public school education from pre-K through college. And I believe that it is possible for us to do that. K through 12 is no longer enough education really for students. We need to be sure that the students, before they arrive in kindergarten, have the skills that they need to be able to succeed in school. And we need to be sure that students, when they finish high school, have the ability to get the additional training or education that they need to go on to lead successful lives. I am also very concerned about health care, and I believe that everyone is entitled to health care, that we should have access to health care for everyone who is living in this country, regardless of status. So one of the things I've had the honor to be able to do is to work a little bit with an organization called CLEAS. It's the Coalition of Limited English Speaking Elderly. And they provide home care services to people who need health care at home. We had my husband's grandmother live with us for 18 months before she passed away, and we were fortunate to be able to have help for her. And because of that, I learned the critical need that there is for people to have help for their elderly adults. And when Rauner vetoed the bill in, I think it was in December, we issued a press release condemning Rauner for having done so. I have a copy of that press release back on the table, and I will certainly fight to maintain and expand that program. I am also concerned about the revenues that we have in this state. Illinois is the 5th largest state in the United States. By its economy is the 5th largest economy in the United States, and yet we have the lowest number per capita of state workers of any state in the country to our population, and we consistently rank in the lowest 10 states in terms of the amount of money that the state pays for the services that it provides. That is unacceptable. And in my view, we need to raise additional revenues. One of the things that I support is moving to a graduated income tax, and to make sure that we are getting revenues from people at the top of the income scale where all of the growth in income has been. I also believe that if we move to a graduated income tax, it will help us to stabilize our revenues, and that is good for the business community because it helps businesses to know what is the climate in which they are making their business decisions. So I am really delighted and honored to be here tonight. I hope that I can earn your vote. My website is maryritaforstaterep.com. I hope you will take a look, and I look forward to meeting and speaking with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you to all state representatives running in the 17th district. Moving on, we will be listening to Mr. Bob Fioretti, who is running for the Cook County Board. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Bob Fioretti.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Fioretti, and I am running for Cook County Board President. You know, I've heard from all the candidates in a lot of the races, and they're tough choices. They make it tough. But I think in running for Cook County Board President, I'm going to make your choice easy so you can vote for me. And thank you. You know, we've entered a time, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My last name is Fioretti. Fioretti means little flower in Italian. I and my wife, and I know she's here somewhere, she's way in the back, waving, thanks Nick, are both from immigrant parents. My dad was born in Italy, my grandfather was born in Italy. Fioretti means little flower because my grandfather, as tough as things get in our society, his parents were the same way, and they abandoned him outside of an orphanage in a field of little flowers, and hence the name. You know, when my dad and my grandfather came to this country, they had to fight. They came at a time when Italians, believe it or not, were discriminated against completely. They passed laws in 1920. My dad came to this country in 1911. And when I hear about healthcare, as the last candidate was talking about, my dad, the last 20 years of his life, was bedridden, so my mother had to take care of him all the time. She had to give up working in our family, and I had to help them too. But I gained my values on the south side of the city of Chicago, where I was born, in Roseland Hospital, now a safety net hospital, facing closure because of what's happened in Springfield and in Washington, D.C. And we don't hear anything from the county board about helping the hospitals that are around, except for Cook County Hospital and Providence Hospital. It's time to do it for all of our hospitals. I learned my values, though, about growing up, getting from my parents. My mother was Polish, though, I have to say. And on Sunday nights, everybody from the community would gather at our house. Italians, Poles, Russians, Germans, people from Portugal, because my mother spoke 7 languages. And she knew how to read them. And so she would translate the letters for everybody and then send the letter back in return. So it was like a small United Nations. And so we learned what fairness is and what prosecutions from those governments meant, because they couldn't send certain letters back. And they couldn't do certain things, whether you're Poland or Russia. So I learned values. I learned how to deliver a paper at my paper route. These are the things my parents told me about what to do. Get a good education, work hard, give back to the community. I ran for city council about 10 years ago in the city of Chicago. I served 2 terms, once under Daley and once under Raoul. I learned how to read budgets, and I was the most outspoken alderman on both of the mayors. I voted against 8 of the budgets, or 6 of the budgets out of the 8. But I have to tell you, what I saw, despite the fact of my outspokenness, I created 8,000 jobs. No alderman ever in the city of Chicago created the number of jobs I did. And at the same time, we had community benefits agreements with everybody, so they would hire from our communities. I was elected with a ward. I was the first white person since 1915 in the ward. The first Caucasian since 1915. 76% African-American ward. 76%. And I knew what the problems were. But I grew up and I became a lawyer. And as a civil rights lawyer, I fought for the right things. I heard about one of the candidates who said she got involved in human trafficking. Well, I'll tell you the experience I did, and I was just at the Bishop's Church where we fought for a young little girl who had to give up because they were advertising in papers about an ad this big, size of your thumb. If you want to give up your baby, contact this number. They pivoted into black communities, underserved communities, not just here in Chicago, but across the country. And they would fly the mother with the baby to Utah. It was human trafficking at its worst element, and parents had to give up their babies. But I remember standing in that church where I was at today, Sweet Holy Church with Bishop Trotter, and with the governor, and not this governor, but a prior governor, and signed the legislation that eliminated that. We got the baby back, but every adoption lawyer in the city of Chicago and family lawyer said, you'll never get it back. Well, my firm and I, we almost went bankrupt fighting for that little baby and changing the law, but we did change the law, and it was because of human trafficking. I brought the incident up in the city council, and all the aldermen were surprised to see that that happens. I brought safe passage when a young man was killed outside Crane High School, and we have it now throughout all of the city. But what we did for safe passage was parents, police, and community partners, pastors, would help bring our kids to school. Now they do it for the pocketbook, not for the passion of education and educating our kids. I gotta tell you, I'm not in favor of any more taxes. I'm not, this person now who was in here 8 years ago said to us, she's gonna get rid of this 1 cent sales tax. She did, and then put it back in. I'm not, and if she wins again on the soda tax, they're going to bring it all back again. So be careful. You know? I've analyzed this budget, and there are ways to do things. We can keep it and live within our means. I need your vote. I need your help. Because yes, I am an underdog, but the poll showed us tied 37-37 in 4 different polls across this country. We're going to win. I want your vote, but I want you to be at my table when we talk about the issues. I will never forget the people in this room, and I want to thank you. My name is Bob Fioretti. I'm running for County Board President. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Bob Fioretti. Moving forward, we're going to hear from the Cook County assessors. So about 3 weeks ago, I was talking to my dad. I was like, Bob, how much do you pay for property tax? And he was, why do you want to know this information? Things like that. So I was asking him all these questions. And then 2 weeks after that question, we actually got a mailer from our next candidate, or the candidate that will be speaking. So I opened it, I started reading what her stance are, things like that. So she really infiltrated my home and made herself a part of our conversation at the table for my family. So please join me in welcoming Andrea Rayla for Cook County Assessor.
Well, thank you. I think we give a round of a hand to this great moderator because, you know, I know it took a long time for us to get through the night, but we're only 10 minutes behind, and I was up to be here at 7:25, and it's just a few minutes behind, so great. I thank the Assyrian National Council for putting on this forum. It's very important. It's important for us to hear the issues of the day. My name is Andrea Rayla, and I am a candidate for the Cook County Assessor's Office. I grew up in Chicago. I have 3 children. 1 is in high school still at Lincoln Park. I have 2 in college. I grew up in Chicago, and I know what ticks and what matters. And I think the most important thing right now that are in people's mind is March 1st. What's happening March 1st? Our first installment tax bills are due. This has been a difficult race. We had 170 Cook County candidates. Out of those 170 Cook County candidates, only 26% of them were women. And of those candidates that are being challenged off the ballot, 69% of them are minorities and women. And I have gone through that objection. And that objection was brought on by my opponent, Fritz Cady, who was here today to speak, but is no longer here. I think that you should honor those organizations that bring you to the table. And 7:25 was when we were supposed to be here. He was here, but he decided he had other things to do. It's not just that I'm a woman running for this office. I'm a woman, the first Democratic woman in 85 years that has run for this office. But not only that, I have the experience. I have 35 years in the assessment industry. I started out working for the Cook County Board of Tax Appeals under Commissioner Quinn, the former governor. I helped people reduce their real estate taxes. I helped them find refunds. I moved into the Harold Washington administration. They appointed me to the first taxpayer advocate office. And I worked there helping businesses and homeowners learn about the property tax system. From there, I went in and opened my own tax consulting firm, a public policy firm. I helped thousands of small businesses and small homeowners find tax relief, find their exemptions and their refunds. And I did that for 25 years. During that time, I went down to Springfield, and in Springfield, we were able to pass laws that helped homeowners and businesses. One in particular was a law that changed how long you could get back taxed. If the assessor found out that you had a garage on your parcel and he never taxed it, he could back tax you 10 years and make you pay that money within 30 days. We went down to Springfield and we shortened that from 10 years down to 4 years. And then we said, give them 6 months in order to pay that. So I've worked with the legislature, and I believe that you need to do that because we need real reform in the property tax assessment system. I'm sure you've heard about the problems that the Tribune exposed in the last May 3 series, where they said that the tax system, the way they set the market values, are very unfair. It overtaxes minority communities and small property owners and gives breaks to the downtown businesses and to large homes that are $2 and $3 million homes. That is unfair, and that has to stop. What I hope to do once I'm elected is put a ban on all the money that has been given by tax lawyers and consultants and appraisers to the assessor's office. No more money will be accepted from those people who have a vested interest. We should cap the triennial reassessment increases. So every time we give a 3-year reassessment notice and the market values go up, they can go up 30, 40, 50% without explanation. That has to stop. We can cap those increases to 15% and still appeal them. That's important, controlling the property tax growth. And then we need to also consider making sure that the minority neighborhoods and people that have been overassessed are brought back into the table. There was someone here that said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. I want to create a task force that people from the Assyrian community, from minority communities, come to the assessor's office as a committee and a task force and look at how their homes should be taxed and give us ideas about how to better see what their neighbors and their community is undergoing and why those market values should be set that way. So these are very important goals, and I think they can be attained. The important thing about property taxation is that it's fair, and people have lost their confidence in the property tax system because of the corruption, and the fairness is not there. And I intend to make sure that once I'm elected Cook County Assessor, that fairness is there and we understand how market values are set. I'm punch 82, you know what to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Andrea Rayla for Cook County Assessor. We will be moving forward to the Cook County Commissioner in the 13th District. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Larry Suffredin.
You don't want to vote for him. I don't want to vote for him.
Be respectful, Mr. Give it a shot here.
Thank you all. It's always a privilege to be here. Raymond Oshana is the individual who introduced me to the Assyrian community. And I have to say that the only failure I believe I've had since I've been in office is we don't have a soccer field for Raymond. You know, we thought we had put together a deal with the Holocaust Museum, that there's an old polo field that's right behind the Holocaust Museum that we could turn into a soccer area. And as we were about to do it, they found some endangered species that were growing in the woods and in the field. And then the state of Illinois declared that whole part of Harms Woods, which is called the Harms Flatwoods, to be a certified forest, which means we have very limited ability to do anything within it. I then sat down with George Van Dusen and met with some of the people from the Assyrian community, and we thought we had a deal with the Water Reclamation District when some of their candidates are up here asking about it for the property at Oakton and McCormick, which they had spent a lot of money trying to take the contamination out of. We thought they would give a $1 a year lease to either the village of Skokie or to the Skokie Park District, and we could have soccer fields there. And then, after all the work they did to decontaminate the land, they found out it was still contaminated, so they put the fence back up. So I'm still looking for a soccer field, but I appreciate everything Raymond has done. So nobody knows what a Cook County Commissioner does. It's stealth government, okay? We have run the hospital. The hospital is important in this area in that the Erie Clinic, which the village of Skokie and the city of Evanston have put together over on Dipster, is a joint project, and it is one of the avenues of our county care delivery of health care to this area, along with the other federally qualified health care centers, the ones that are run by Access to Care, the ones that are run by Heartland Alliance, the ones that are run by the Asian Human Services. We also run the jail, and we've worked very hard to get the population of the jail down so that it's now at one of the lowest levels at 6,000 people. It have been over 10,000 for most of the last 10 years. We also run the forest preserve system, which is the one thing that many of you participate in and are part of, and it's probably the greatest forest preserve system owned by a local unit of government in the United States. All of those things are the projects that I spend time on. I try to respond to the community as best I can. The one area, though, that I have really, I think, excelled in is the property tax appeal process. I preach that you have to appeal twice a year because of the way the state of Illinois has written the tax appeals process and assessment process. What the last speaker was talking about has to be changed by the General Assembly. But until then, we have to appeal twice a year, once to the assessor, once to the Board of Review. We just finished the Board of Review here in Niles Township. I want to tell you that I've helped over 10,000 people get reductions. And the reason it's important is that everybody needs to appeal, because if you have a block of 10 houses and 5 of those houses get a reduction, the other 5 are going to pay more in taxes, because there has to be a balancing out. And so everyone needs to appeal, and that's what we'll continue to go after. Finally, I want to apologize for the way I'm dressed today, but I've been out with our snow plows. As you know, Oakton is a county route through downtown Skokie, and I think we did a good job in plowing there today. Crawford is a county route all through Skokie and all through Lincolnwood, and as I drove through those places, we did a good job. Old Orchard Road is a county road, and we did a good job plowing there. We've also been in our forest preserves in Harms Woods to make sure our parking lots and our trails have been open for people to use today in the snow. Finally, I just want to thank the Assyrian community for putting this on. As Pete Dager, an old friend of mine, said, all the people in my race are really good people. We have 2 wonderful young people. I look forward to learning from them, from their ideas. But the key thing is we have got to keep governments functioning, and we have got to be realistic about what it takes to keep them going. So again, thank you very much. I look forward to working with you.
It's my honor and privilege to introduce this next young woman to the Assyrian community. While we've had introductions prior, the next young lady speaking for the role of Cook County Commissioner in the 13th District is a brilliant, fierce, intelligent young woman. She's very knowledgeable and passionate. She is a graduate from the Niles North High School community, so she's from the area. Please join me in welcoming Miss Bushra Amiwala.
Thank you, Miss Paulus, or should I call her Sarah, now that she's not an old teacher of mine anymore. My name is Bushra Amiwala, and I am a candidate to represent the 13th District on the Cook County Board of Commissioners. I'm a daughter of immigrants who came to the United States 21 years ago. They left everything they had back home in Pakistan, so I could one day have the privilege and stand here in front of all of you and really chase my dreams and desires that I had. And because of this background, I grew up in a single, one-bedroom apartment home, and I saw injustices in every form that they came in. Racism, discrimination, food insecurity, and educational inequality. And because of this, I worked with countless nonprofit organizations to help work towards the cause and issues that I cared about. Again, all of the diverse forms that they came in. Now from there, now my background with these organizations has really helped shape policy ideas in many ways. So for example, one of the issues that the county commissioners have fathomed for the past decade is why aren't communities of color and people like all of you signing up for county care, a service that is offered and it's affordable health care in the county. And it's because they don't know about it. And those who do know about it do not know how to sign up because these town halls and service meetings are not held in their districts and they're not advertised accordingly. And same goes for the assessment and appeal process. Because yes, you are right, you do have to appeal your assessment, but guess who can't afford a property appeal attorney? People who come from communities that look like this. And when my family moved to Skokie about 11 years ago, our assessment was about $6,000. Within 8 years of living there, it almost doubled to $11,000. And my parents' income was $30,000. Meaning a third of their income was going to property taxes. And when they went to find a solution, you know what they told them? Either move or just appeal it. And that is the solution that they are giving all of you. Because there isn't someone who looks like you on the board that says, no, you can't just tell them to appeal it. You should have these workshops that are accessible. You have language interpreters there. You have people that help them through the appeal process and don't require an attorney to help so with that as well. Now with that being said, growing up, so someone actually once asked me to run for this position. They told me that the current commissioner, Mr. Suffredin, who just spoke here, would be retiring after 16 years of service. He is not, which is why when people are confused as to why I'm sort of challenging the establishment, 11 months ago, I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. But within a week of filing my paperwork to run for this position, I was called into one of the local offices, a local elected official, and he told me very clearly, don't run for this position. Drop out while you still can. And that's what we are being told. That's what your children, if they ever wanted to run for office, would probably be told if they ran against someone who they are friends with. And since then, it ignited a fuel inside of me, but also it's led to a community movement. So looking around, when I was collecting petition signatures to get my name on the ballot, someone told me, whatever you do, don't waste your time collecting those signatures outside the mosque, because those people will not vote for you, and they won't vote against you, and they won't donate a single dollar to your campaign. So remember, they don't matter. And that is how people view immigrants, people of color, people of minority status, all of you, me, my siblings, and my family. They think we don't matter. We shouldn't clap towards that, and it's time to prove them wrong, because we will vote, we will organize, and we will sort of out-organize the establishment. Thank you. Because since then, we hosted a voter registration drive, which I led, at the local mosque and community. So we registered those people to vote, and we will have a march to the polls once early voting begins. And we'll prove all the wrong that we do matter. We should also be representing our communities. And since then, I've still been speaking at the local high schools. And now guess what? All the seniors that are 17 by the primary will lead to historical voter turnout and come out and vote for me as well. And they are the ones who march with me and go door to door with me. They're the ones making phone calls with me. And since then, I recently actually hosted a fundraising dinner where 400 people came out to come. And you honestly should have seen the room. People of all color and background and status, and teachers, small business owners, the parents of the people I went to school with, people who look like all of you, came to show their support, and we've raised the most money in this race, which is what legitimizes your candidacy, unfortunately. And the recent poll led by Network 49 shows that I poll 40%. And all of you, and the supporters I just mentioned, aren't even in those polls. So we can really do this together, and I would really appreciate all of your support on March 20th, 2018. Bushra Amiwala for Cook County Board of Commissioners. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bushra Amiwala. She is running for Cook County Commissioner in the 13th District. Please join me in welcoming the final candidate for the Cook County Commissioner of the 13th District, Mr. Daniel Foster.
everybody. Thank you for staying here tonight. I know it's a cold night, and I always congratulate everybody who stays late to listen to the county board District 13 candidates. The room usually thins out like this, so thank you very much. You guys are the most important people here. You know, anyone who showed up tonight, they really missed out. This is a really important race with a lot of really important issues. I apologize for the scratchiness in my throat, by the way, and I might have to clear it a few times in my speech, so I really apologize for that. My name is Daniel Foster. I'm running for the Cook County Board of Commissioners here in District 13. When my older brother was born with Down syndrome in 1982, he didn't have the Americans with Disabilities Act to protect him. Even after the ADA was passed, my parents had to fight for him to be included with his peers in classrooms, summer camps, and park district activities. My whole family, including my husband Jordan and I, have continued that fight to make sure that my brother continues to receive opportunities as an adult. Growing up around that fight, participating in that fight now, has given me a sense of how important integration is. And in my opinion, mass incarceration is the most blatant, destructive, and institutionalized form of segregation facing my generation today. One of the reasons I'm running for the Cook County Board of Commissioners is that I care deeply about ending the era of mass incarceration. Here in Cook County, 60% of the individuals we incarcerate have a mental disability or a chemical addiction. Our county sheriff calls the county jail the nation's largest mental health institution. Whether we realize it or not, mass incarceration and segregation in general is one of the most critical problems we are facing here in Cook County. I've introduced more detailed policy proposals than either of my opponents because I believe that our county has enormous untapped potential to solve these kinds of problems. And what we really need right now are some new ideas and a representative for our district that will be dedicated to fighting for them. For instance, I'm the only candidate in our race that has introduced a detailed and realistic policy proposal about how to fix our corrupt and unfair property tax assessment system. I'm proposing a complete redesign of the way that we perform assessments, so that assessments are only based on a property's size, usage, and location. This system will be simpler, fairer, and far more transparent than the system we have in place today. My proposal will immediately eliminate the need to constantly appeal your assessment, and it will immediately eliminate the penalty that you pay for doing home improvements, adding value to what, for most of us, is our single biggest asset. I'm also the only candidate that has a proposal for how we can eliminate the county's portion of the sales tax, which would create an immediate tax cut of over 10% for the majority of Cook County residents, boosting business and sales from tourism, while only increasing taxes on a very small percentage of very wealthy residents in order to pay for it. I'm the only candidate in our race that has a plan to end our county's contribution to climate change, reducing our county's net carbon emissions immediately by 40% before the year 2030, while at the same time saving homeowners and our local government hundreds of millions of dollars every single year. In addition, my environmental proposal will create a drastic reduction in the frequency and severity of basement flooding in our district and throughout all of suburban Cook County. But just as important as introducing these and other new ideas into our government is electing a representative that is dedicated to fighting for them. The world is urbanizing, and as one of the world's wealthiest urban centers, Cook County should be burgeoning. Our current struggle with population decline makes us a global outlier. We need a representative that is dedicated to spending their days talking to other officials, talking to constituents like you, and writing legislation and working with other commissioners to make sure that that legislation is passed. On issues like climate change, on issues like criminal justice, our district in all of Cook County needs a full-time commissioner right now. Neither of my opponents are willing to represent the people of our district full-time. I am, and I think that alone sets me apart from them. My name is Daniel Foster. I grew up here in the 13th District. I went to public school here before earning my BS in Mathematics and Computer Science from UIC, our county's largest public research university. My career history includes work in actuarial science, software development, and the not-for-profit sector. My family still lives in the childhood home that I grew up in here in this district, and my husband Jordan and I currently live in Skokie. I care about our county and our district. It's my home. I'm asking you to join me so together we can create a different Cook County. Please don't forget to visit me at commissionerfoster.com to learn more about me and my campaign, and thank you very much for inviting me here tonight.
Thank you to Daniel Foster and to every individual running on that Cook County Commissioner 13th District seat. So we do have one other individual who, or actually we have two more people, two more speakers to hear from. So before we move forward, please allow me to welcome a gentleman running for Lake County Clerk. He has been waiting patiently, so please join me in welcoming Mr. Adam Broad.
Thank you for waiting patiently. My name's Adam Broad. I'm a current Vernon Township trustee and candidate for Lake County Clerk. In 1981, I enlisted in the Marine Corps and swore an oath to uphold and defend the United States Constitution. I'm running for clerk to maintain that oath. Voters' rights and election integrity are my primary concerns. My proposed reforms are to protect and expand integrity and rights. I'm passionate about elections and democracy. That was why in 2005 I volunteered to observe the UN expatriate elections for Iraq with my friend Pete Dager over there. And like Pete said, there is a lot of money in government, and as Vernon Township trustee, we were able to expand vital social services and cut our property tax levy 5%. That's rather unique among units of government in Illinois, by doing basically a hands-on forensic audit of what was going on in our township government and reallocate resources and to expand our programs while cutting taxes. As clerk, I intend to use the same better government principles to pay for my reforms. I'm not going to ask the taxpayers for more money. I'm going to go into the budget, and I'm going to find the money we need to have more judges, more early voting. I'm going to make democracy more accessible to people. And I hope you will tell your friends in Lake County, please support me. Like I said, I'm a friend of the Assyrian community. I volunteered with Pete, organizing for Assyrian national statehood, and I think that's an ongoing struggle. And the first line, reform begins with your vote. So go out there and support the politicians that support your agenda, and support the people who believe in fair elections, and I'm one of those people, and I hope I earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam Broad, for the Lake County Clerk. Moving on, that final category that we'll be listening to is the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Marcelino Garcia to speak on behalf of that water reclamation seat. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Marcelino Garcia.
Good evening, Assyrian National Council of Illinois. My name is Marcelino Garcia, and I'm the independent candidate running for the 6-year term for the Water Reclamation District. I grew up in Puerto Rico and came to Chicago more than 24 years ago, so I know what's to be an immigrant. Even though I'm a U.S. citizen by birth, growing up somewhere far away in a culture different than the one here, when we speak a different language at home, and having to do a lot of different things that are averse to growing up, I know what it's like to be different in a land. And I'm very proud to be here in Chicago, and scared at the same time for running for a seat for the first time in my life. Got to Chicago when I went to law school at Northwestern. And I became a public interest law attorney, helping families achieve their dreams, dealing with immigration matters, real estate, domestic relations, jumping over the many hoops of what's hard about the legal system. And I'm proud of all the work that I've done there. I'm also a public servant. I started my career at the Chicago Park District, helping communities bring green space into their neighborhoods, improve their parks, build playgrounds. And it was interesting to hear Commissioner Suffredin talk about a soccer field that the community wants by the woods close to the Holocaust Museum. And I don't know if the colleagues that will be mine at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District have any plans to do that. But when I'm elected, you can be sure that I will look into it and that your community and your organization will have an advocate in me and my staff to make sure that what you want to be done is done. And that if the organization can do it, then it can be done. And it's not, and I don't say that just because I just heard it, but it's something that I've done throughout my career, working companies, do exports out of Illinois to build economic development, or to engage and bring healthcare to the people of communities all over Cook County and my work at the hospital system. I'm a devoted public servant, and it's kind of crazy that I am running for water reclamation, but I want to make sure that the commissioners who are there represent everyone, and that they do adequate programming to bring resources into communities, and that the interests of all of us are heard by a board. We still need to deal with floodwater control and wastewater issues, and that's something that happens here, but we also need advocates that will stand up to the policies of Washington and Springfield that want to deregulate and not create safeguards for all of us. I am Marcelino Garcia. I'm running for Commissioner of the Water Reclamation District, and I look forward to working with you in the future, and I would like your support in this endeavor. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. And for the final candidate of the evening, Mr. Frank Avila for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation Commissioner. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Frank Avila.
Shalom Aleichem. First of all, I want to come here as a longtime friend of the Assyrian community, as well as the Chaldean and Syriac communities. First of all, I know that you're not Arabs, you're Assyrian ethnically, and some of you claim Aramean ethnicity also. So I know that you're distinct, the distinct ethnicity of either Assyrian or Aramean, and that you're Syriac and Aramaic speakers, either West or East Syriac dialects as it may be. And I know that. So I want to come to you as a friend that knows a little bit about your community. And I want you to know that I support the Assyrian community. I've been doing it for a long time, not just when I'm involved in politics or running for office. The last time I was in this room was about 2 years ago, I believe, or more or less. I saw some of you when there was a dinner and there was a movie presented about the fighters in Iraq and Syria. In fact, I wore today, I had some bad luck today. Because Monday was a holiday, I didn't pick up my dry cleaning, so I didn't have a suit. So I had to move around and see what coat and pants I had. But by providence, I found a coat that had my In Defense of Christians pen on it. And I'm a member of In Defense of Christians. In the 1990s, when I was at the University of Chicago, majoring in Arabic language and Middle Eastern studies, still with the ROTC, I wrote a paper on minorities in the Middle East, especially Christians, but also other minorities. And I've been an advocate for Christians in the Middle East for a very long time, not just because I'm running for office. And I support the Assyrians, the Syriacs, and the Chaldeans in Iraq, and the Syriacs and the Assyrians in Lebanon and Syria, and all over the Middle East. I support funding, although I'm not running for congressional office. My rhetorical support supports funding for the Christian militias in Iraq and Syria. I know one of them is called the Nineveh Plains Protection Unit. I can't even pronounce the other ones. So I support a protection autonomous zone for Christians in the Nineveh Plain that I think should be as expanded as people return to their homes. And I hope and I support one day, as we saw for Israel in 1948, and as we saw for Armenia after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and other nations, as you saw the breakup of the Soviet Union and different desires for nationhood, that the Assyrian people and the other Syriac and Aramaic speaking people, including the Chaldeans and the Syriacs and the Armenians and the intermarriages between all the Christian peoples, have a state in Iraq and or Syria or wherever that may be. So I come to you as a friend, all the people that are here and all the people that are going to be on TV, as a longtime friend of the Assyrian community, as a longtime friend of Christians in the Middle East, one, knowing who you are, and two, supporting you for a very long time. And many of you do know that and know me, and you can verify with that people. I supported Pete Dager for Congress in 2002 and some of his other efforts, and I supported him I'm supporting him now for state representative now. And as you become part of the American dream, I support the desires of the Assyrian community in terms of jobs and contracts and opportunities and the geographic areas of where you live. And I will be the strongest friend of the Assyrian community and Christians in the Middle East you've ever had. I'm a member of In Defense of Christians. I've been to many Assyrian events. When the great persecutions with Daesh were going on, I went to the Assyrian church over by Tui to show solidarity. I'm not a member of the Church of the East. I'm not Chaldean. I'm not Syriac Orthodox. I'm Catholic. But I wanted to show solidarity with my persecuted Christian brothers. And I support you. Now, what am I running for? So enough of all that, right? But you should know who I am, what I know about your community, and how long I've been supporting you, even if I can't pronounce the Syrian language very well. I'm running for Water Reclamation District. It's a very odd and unique office right now because there's 5 open seats. There's 3 6-year seats, which are the normal terms. There's 1 2-year term, which is the unfulfilled vacancy of Cynthia Santos, and there's a 5th seat that is going to be elected by write-in. And I wasn't going to run for it. I don't even think there should be a write-in for this office. I thought about doing a lawsuit. But the political powers that be wanted somebody to come in. They wanted to slip somebody in, the chosen person. I won't mention his name. He's a very nice young man. But he messed up the paperwork, and he's a lawyer too, so I'm surprised he did it. And he did not file with the city and the county. And so he cannot be a candidate at all, or at least none of his votes in the city can count. So I decided to run, and when you run for a write-in, you have to declare on the deadline, and you have to declare by an affidavit, properly notarized, in the county and the city. So I did all that. Now for me, there will be no candidates on the ballot. I'm taking a big risk here, it's something very hard. But this is where your community can have a big victory. Because you need a minimum of 8,800 votes. And most people, the conventional wisdom is nobody can get this number. And this where an ethnic community, a geographic or interest community can come in. And if they unify, they can get somebody elected to that office. I have some flyers, they're very rough flyers, and you could have to write in my name in the Tim Bradford vacancy. It's the 5th spot. It's the 5th spot. So you're gonna see 4 people, or maybe more, because there's a federal lawsuit for the 3-year. You're gonna see 1 or 2 people for the 2-year. Then you're gonna see the write-in candidates. I am going to be on the section for the write-ins. No names will be on the ballot. You need to write in my name, Frank Avila, and you need to put an X. Now, of course, there's the electronic voting, and there is the paper voting. And it'll be a little bit different on how it's done. I have how the sample ballot looks. And maybe it's hard to explain, but it's going to be how the sample ballot looks. You're going to have to make the X, or sometimes you fill it in, you're going to have to follow the directions. and then you're gonna have to write my name in. And your community could elect me alone because you have more than 8,800 voters in the 40th and 39th and 50th and Niles and Morgan Grove and other areas in Cook County, but especially the northern suburbs and some of the northern wards in Chicago, 39, 40, 50, you have 49, 39, 50, a very strong base, as well as Skokie, Niles, Morgan Grove. Now, a little bit about me. I'm a lawyer. Don't hold that against me. I'm a longtime Chicagoan. I'm a homeowner. I'm a small business owner. I am a property owner. My father is a civil engineer, so I know a little bit about engineering and conservationism, and I have a plan and vision for that office. I was a captain in the United States Army, honorable discharge. I was mostly in the reserves, but I also did active duty time as the legal counsel for wounded soldiers in the Pacific region, where I had the honor to serve our wounded soldiers. And I'm very proud of my service. I got an RCOM and an AAM. But I will tell you and leave you with this, because I know the young lady there is giving me the cane, is I will be the biggest and best friend the Assyrian community ever had. Not because of politics or because I'm here to get your vote, because I truly believe in it. I truly believe in protecting all minorities. I believe in protecting people and human rights and self-determination. And God willing, over the years, like for 1,800 years or so, nobody fought. The 1,800 years after 70 AD, the fall of the temple in Jerusalem. 1,800 years, and a dream was sparked, and about 1,900 years or so, a little less, Israel became a nation. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Armenia became a nation, and many other nations came after that. One day I believe that Assyria, or if they call it Aramia, or they have a different name, will be a nation, and Christians will return to the Middle East. And God willing, if I'm elected official, my voice is elected official, because I have very little voice now, but a little man. But if I'm an elected official, my voice will be elevated, and I will push for funding for all the Christian militias in Syria and Iraq. And I will push for an autonomous protection zone in the Nivedo Plain. And I please ask you for your vote. I have some flyers. God bless you. Goodbye.
Thank you. That is Frank Avila for the Water Reclamation District. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have one final speaker who has been waiting so patiently, so please take your seats. We've promised him just a few minutes. Please have a seat. Let's give him the opportunity to speak. He is a surrogate for the Maria Pappas campaign. Please join me in welcoming a gentleman that needs no introduction because he will introduce himself up here for the Maria Pappas campaign.
Shalom aleichem, Shimbi Bob Benjamin. Hello, I'm Bob Benjamin. I work for Maria Pappas. I'm speaking for her. I'm going to be very, very brief, okay? This has been a wonderful evening. Maria sends her respect and love. She has shown her respect and love to the Assyrian community by putting our language on her website. This, I think, is the only government in this country that has the Assyrian language on the website. And Assyrians use it. We check it out, and people do use this website with the Assyrian language, language that Christ spoke. I'll be again, to finish off, I've just started, but to finish off, Maria, when she became treasurer, the office was a mess. It was in the 19th century. People were writing things in pen and ink. There were 6 computers. There were 250 employees. Today there are 88 employees, and the office does more with less, far more with less. If she had kept 250 employees, the office's budget would be $43 million. Today the budget is $12.9 million, but $12 million comes from banks and mortgage companies, so it doesn't come from you. She has pledged to cut that $900,000 down to 1 penny. I think she's going to do it. She sends her best. Again, congratulations for this event. It's been wonderful. having your language on the Treasurer's website may be a small thing, but it makes people know that you're here, and this event has done that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bob Benjamin, speaking on behalf of Maria Pappas for the Cook County Treasurer. We'd like to thank the Assyrian National Council of Illinois for allowing us to use this space. We'd like to thank all of you for being in attendance. We would like to thank the network Assyrians around the world for being here and being so diligent in their recording. We'd like to thank everybody, all the media outlets who came and joined us for this event. Please give yourselves one final round of applause for being civically